Okay, we're gonna try and share this while we wait for everyone. Ay, that's fine. Okay, okay, good. Zach Hayes, welcome. Hello. Glad you could join us. That's good. Now I'm going to share on Tumblr. And then what? I don't know. We'll talk about stuff. How's it going, Zach? Come on, come on. There we go. All right. There it is, all shared. Ready here? Ooh, Shubham Nauni, welcome. Zach Hayes, I've seen both of these films, all right. Curious what you thought. Curious what you thought. Yeah, so, it's been a good week. Trying to get back into the rhythm of doing the show every Saturday. I was gone for a little while. But yeah, it's like riding a bike. I'll rediscover it soon enough. But yes, this is Videodrone, the show where I talk about movies. I'm DisRegarding Henry. Thank you all for joining me. We're talking about British films this Saturday. Some great British films, I thought. I really liked both of these, so I'm excited to talk about both of them. I'd heard mixed things about the two of them, but I actually wound up liking both quite a bit. So we'll get into that. What do we got going on in the chat right now? Zach Hayes, I liked Free Fire, but didn't care for T2 Trainspotting. Yeah, I've been hearing mixed reception on T2 especially. I'll leave when you discuss Terminator 2. That is a funny decision that they went with T2. And I also listened to, because I got the DVD from the library, so I listened to Danny Boyle's audio commentary on Trainspotting, and he said it was a deliberate Terminator 2 reference, calling it T2 like that, which I thought was funny and curious. But yes, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to get into it. Kind of looking for some warm-up, though. What's everyone been watching? Anybody see any good movies this last week? Because I got two I want to talk about, but I kind of want to just, try to ease into it a little bit. But if not, that's okay. I can just jump right into it as well. Looks like, we're getting people tuning in slowly. Chaz's Dungeon, I watched The Elephant Man. It's been a while since I've seen that one. Lynch is coming up a lot. Yeah, it's been... Yeah, Lynch is one I'm pretty familiar with, but, it's been a while since I've really, recently revisited most of his movies. The most recent one was Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which I talked about last week, so I don't want to repeat myself. But yeah, Elephant Man's always been one I really liked. Especially John Hurt's performance, I think, is really extraordinary in that one. And the black and white photography. I think it was... What's the cinematographer? Freddie Francis, I think his name is? I might be wrong on that. But yeah, the black and white photography on Elephant Man is really extraordinary. Oh, and many silent films, too, for Chaz's Dungeon. Andalusian Dog, classic. The Seashell and the Clergyman. I don't know that one. Is that another surrealist silent? Might have to write that one down. Yeah, Andalusian Dog I know pretty well. I've seen that one several times. The classic, it's Luis Buñuel's first movie, isn't it? Luis Buñuel and Salvador Dali. Yeah. I believe that one's in the public domain, so yeah, anyone can watch it. It's only 15 minutes long. A classic of surrealist and silent and arguably independent cinema as well. The Seashell and the Clergyman, yeah. I might have to check this one out. Clergyman. Okay. Zach Hayes. I've rented a lot. Captain Underpants was interesting. Oh, The Big Sick was real good. Yeah, I've got a hold on that one at the library. And The Hero with Sam Elliott. I've heard a little bit about that one. I don't know too much about it. Okay, let's see. I got to arrange my desk here. All right, let's do that. Yeah, Captain Underpants. Not sure what to make of that one. I remember reading those books when I was a child. And I remember loving them because, hey, it's about a guy in his underpants. What kid doesn't love those? What kid doesn't love an idea like that? It's been a while since I've read them, though. Oh, Shubham Nowney saw Sion Sono's Why Don't You Play in Hell? Great subversive filmmaker. Yeah, that's a good one. Why Don't You Play in Hell? I really enjoyed that one. Yeah, it's like, I liked that it was such a ridiculous idea, and executed with such an absurdly comedic tone, but like all of the actors were playing it completely straight. Like all of the actors were really selling the drama, like really committing to it. And there were some great performances too, especially the actor, I can't remember his name, but he played the Yakuza boss who is wanting to make the movie for I think it's his wife who's in prison. I think that's like the concept behind the movie, but just like how much he sells that character, how committed he is to that performance. I was actually really impressed by the acting in that movie, that especially it took place in this insane idea. It's kind of like, I don't know, I guess like a Quentin Tarantino movie almost, like a Kill Bill or something like that. It's a ridiculous genre film, but there's great characters, there's great performances, there's great directing. I kind of like when movies play with your expectations like that. You think like any other director, would not commit to an idea this, I guess this seriously. Any other director would try to make a joke out of it. So I always like it when directors can have these crazy ideas and like, you know what? I'm really going to go for it. Like Swiss Army Man or something like that. I feel like if there's a genre for that, if you can come up with a name for that, I'd kind of put those in the same category. Stuff like Why Don't You Play in Hell, Swiss Army Man, crazy ideas that filmmakers like, you know what, we're not going to just, make like a 10-minute joke out of this. We're going to try and really sell a dramatic film on this crazy idea. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. I don't like calling The Elephant Man a David Lynch film, although there are aspects that are reminiscent of a Lynch film. I remember especially the beginning and the ending of The Elephant Man feeling very, very Lynchian, very Eraserhead, kind of abstract. The way, I remember images of like stars and cosmos and kind of like this kind of like dreamlike storytelling before it gets into more of a grounded kind of narrative. But I remember Lynchian touches, and certainly the texture of the film feels very Lynchian to me, like the wet concrete and the steam and the fog and the stone and the metal. There are aspects of Elephant Man that feel distinctly Lynchian to me. Chaz's Dungeon again. I watched Existenz, which is a great David Cronenberg movie, and Human Nature, which I believe, is that the Michel Gondry one? Or I can't remember the director, but I believe that's a Charlie Kaufman script, if I'm not mistaken. Existenz was unexpectedly insane, even for a Lynch film, in my opinion. I think you mean a Cronenberg film. You're wrong, David. David Cronenberg. Oh, and okay, yeah, Chaz's Dungeon. Human Nature is Charlie Kaufman's. Okay, it is the one I'm thinking of. Least known film, and I can understand why. I haven't seen that one yet. Oh, and Zach Hayes again. It's just like the Captain Underpants books. Reminded me of Recess and other Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah, I can't say much about the concept for Captain Underpants, but I will say when I saw the trailer for it, I did kind of like the animation style they adopted, and like the stylized approach to the animation. There was something about it that I thought was like, okay, that looks like it could be kind of charming, but I wasn't too sure. I still haven't seen it, so I don't know. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. The ending to Existenz is what makes the film, in my opinion. Yeah, okay. I remember it had a pretty trippy ending. Yeah, that's one of those movies where it really leaves you on an ambiguous note. You're really not sure what has happened, what's real, what's not real, and that's kind of the point. But yeah, that's a cool one. That's an innovative one. Cronenberg's always got some pretty clever ideas, and I think Existenz is certainly a fascinating one. Definitely ideas, distinctly Cronenberg ideas, like mixing technology in the human body, flesh and machinery. The gristle gun, I believe it's called. It's the gun made out of human bone that shoots human teeth. That I thought was an especially brilliant little touch in that movie. Low Res Wonderbread, have you read One Saliva Bubble? Doing a vid on it later this month. Want to know if it's worth it. I actually haven't read that one. That is the David Lynch script that he co-wrote with Mark Frost, both of whom would later go on to create Twin Peaks together. I've read little bits and pieces of One Saliva Bubble. I have yet to actually sit down and read the whole script from beginning to end, so I'm not sure. Sorry I can't be more helpful on that. But yeah, I have not yet read One Saliva Bubble. But that is one I myself would like to do a video on in the future, if I got the opportunity. Still trying to finish Dune, though, but it is coming along. I'm actually starting to make progress on that one. Trying to set a goal. I'm hoping, like, before the end of October, I can have part 1 of that dang thing posted. We'll see, though. I don't want to make any solid promises yet, but that's the preliminary goal at this point. Oh, Zach Hayes, I meant to bring this up last week, but phone died. The commentary on the end of the tour was interesting. When they went to see Broken Arrow, that was a good scene. The Muppets was playing next door. He wanted to surprise the kids because he produced and stars in the Muppets, but he was in the Wallace outfit. So they thought it was some weirdo. Are you talking about Jason Segel? Or are you talking about like some kind of meta thing? Like Jason Segel's in the Muppets and he wanted to surprise his friends? That's an interesting idea. I wonder if that was on purpose. Let's see. Chaz's Dungeon again. Elephant Man is like how Bronson is to Nicholas Winding Refn. They're amazing films, likely the best out of their career, yet they're out of their styles. I don't know. I might disagree with that. I think Bronson feels pretty distinctly Nicholas Winding Refn to me, and same for Elephant Man. It's yeah, it's a very narrative film, and it's a very emotional film, and it's based on a true story. So yeah, I guess how it can kind of seem out of character for David Lynch, but I think also with any filmmaker like that, they're going to bring, you know, they can't help but bring themselves to every project that they do. So I think Elephant Man winds up feeling pretty Lynchian, even though if it had gone to some other director, it probably would have felt as far from David Lynch as you could possibly get. But, you know, he was the one that stepped in there and did it, and he brought himself to it. He couldn't help but bring himself to it. So I don't know. I don't really view it as separate from his other work. You know, it's just kind of a maybe an atypical little piece, a little slice out of that oeuvre, but still part of the whole. As in my opinion, at least. Oh, Shubham Nowney rewatched Old Boy, obviously the original, of course. Blew my mind after the second watch, too. Yeah, that's a movie I've seen many, many times, and yeah, it is one of those ones that gets better and better every time I see it. I actually, I'm gonna need to go back to that one too. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, there's so much in that film that sticks in my memory. The ants, that popped into my head the other day. The recurring visual motif of ants in that movie. It's so creepy and so evocative. That's what I love about Park Chan-wook. He's got such a unique creative mind. He'll find things like that seem to fit so organically into a story, but you wonder, like, what other filmmaker would come up with an idea that strange, that offbeat? All right, do a few more, then I'll try and get into Free Fire. Feel like I'm starting to loosen up a little bit. Chaz's Dungeon. I have Cronenberg's Spider. I've heard that the film is like Enemy. Do you recommend the film? I guess maybe you could draw comparisons to Enemy. It's definitely, it's different in tone, I would think. But I don't know. Yeah, it is sort of about a personality becoming split and confusion with identity. And kind of having this surreal, like, constantly morphing reality. It's a good one, though. I think it is a very good one. Especially Ralph Fiennes' performance as Spider is pretty extraordinary. But it's a very dark film. It is a very dark and very sad, very tragic film. It's not one that you're going to enjoy watching. You know, it's going to be an unpleasant experience, but there's a lot in it that I think is really worthy of admiration on an artistic level, just in the way it's written, the way it's directed, the way it's acted. It's a very good movie, I think, but a very challenging movie as well, and an emotionally oppressive film. Chaz's Dungeon. Have you seen Zardoz? I have not seen Zardoz, but it's one I've heard a lot about. Or did you... There's another one here. Asterisk Wizard of Oz. So I'm not sure if you're asking Zardoz or is that a mistake. I haven't seen Zardoz, but I have seen Wizard of Oz. Not for a long, long time, though. So unfortunately, it's one I saw when I was younger. I remember really liking it. It's a classic, of course, of cinema history. I'm going to turn a light on here. There we go. Doesn't make much difference, but why not? But yeah, that's one... Gosh, you know... I don't think I've ever watched Wizard of Oz, like, as an adult. I might have to put that one on my list. The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to go back to that one as an adult. Because there are things that I clearly remember, but it's been so long since I've seen it. I'm curious what my reaction would be. Yo, welcome, Ennio Souza. The only film you haven't seen from Lynch is Elephant Man. It's worth a look, I think. Elephant Man, I think, is definitely worth a look. If not for any other reason than just simply for John Hurt's performance in the central role. It's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. The way he's able to... Because he's covered in makeup. Like, he's unrecognizable. Completely unrecognizable. Even his voice, you know, because... the character is so deformed, he can't really speak very clearly. You don't recognize, you know, his face, his voice, anything, but just the incredible way that John Hurt is able to convey humanity and vulnerability and emotion, the way he's able to convey so much through all of that makeup. It's incredible, incredible. But also, I think there are many more reasons to watch that movie in addition to Hurt's performance. But if you only need one reason, that's it, just for that performance. Let's see. Chaz's Dungeon. What motivated Lynch to make Blue Velvet instead of Ronnie Rocket? As I know that Lynch specifically made The Elephant Man to get more recognition so he could make Ronnie Rocket. I can't say for certain. Probably the only person who could is David Lynch, but I think I may have I remember discovering like a few additional interviews after I did the Ronnie Rocket videos that sort of gave some additional information. I can't remember if I mentioned it in the videos that I did or not, but I remember finding some interviews where Lynch was talking about that, and talking about how he did, at least at one point, he had the opportunity to do Ronnie Rocket. Like, if he wanted to do it, he could have done it. But he kind of talks about how he deliberately, like, kind of postponed it until eventually he lost the opportunity. And he said it was a conscious decision on his part, because he never really felt like the script was really finished. I think the way he put it is he never really found the big idea for that for that story. So if I had to give you a reason, I think it's because Lynch just always felt there was something missing in the movie, and he was never able to really figure out what it was. So he kind of just decided, even though it was something that obsessed him and that he continued to pursue, it was something he could never really commit to the way he could with other projects like Blue Velvet, where he really felt confident that the ideas were there, the story was there, he wanted to make those movies. The impression that I've gotten about Ronnie Rocket is that he was just never really fully confident. He never really felt it was completely finished for whatever reason. And of course, Lynch is always kind of vague on these points. He's never really said exactly what it is. I don't think he even knows really exactly what it is, but he just never really felt it was really complete, apparently. So that's the best answer I could give you. I don't know how definitive it is, but that's the impression that I've gotten. Oh, Zach Hayes, have you seen What We Do in the Shadows? It's on Prime and definitely worth checking out. The director is doing the new Thor film, and that looks awesome to me. I love his films. I know it's in good hands. I have not seen What We Do in the Shadows. I'm going to put that on my list. My brother saw it in Portland, and he said it was great. So I'm going to put that one down, make sure I watch it. What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, I know it's a mockumentary about vampires just kind of living a modern day life. And I've seen bits and pieces, and I've seen stuff that is really, really funny. But I've never watched the entire film, so I'm going to have to do that. I've heard very good things about it. Low Res Wonderbread, what do you consider Danny Boyle's best film? That's a tough question. Maybe the first Trainspotting? I'm not sure. I'd have to put some thought into that. He's done some ones that I really like. I think the first Trainspotting is a classic and really just an epitome of like high energy, visceral, like youthful style. The first Trainspotting, I think, still to this day is just like a whirlwind. It's an amazing film that you can just watch, and it just starts and it goes and it never stops and it draws you in, and I mean it's electric from start to finish. And I think that is Boyle's best strength as a director. And ever since he's moved into the digital realm, I feel like he's been able to find like more and more innovative ways like to make movies faster and quicker and more visceral and more energetic. That's what I thought Trainspotting 2 was like. It was kind of like a further refinement of that style of getting more energy, more style, just more. So it's impressive to me that as he's gotten older, like his films haven't really slowed down. They've just gotten quicker and quicker. So maybe the first Trainspotting, which is still, I think, one of his finest achievements, or maybe actually, now that I think about it, because he's done some good ones. 28 Days Later, I think, is a really good one. And 127 Hours is one of his all-time best. I think 127 Hours is a great movie. So maybe a three-way tie. I would probably put the top two spots to Trainspotting and 127 Hours. Those are the two I've been most affected by. So one of those two. I don't know if I could choose between them. Let's see. Chaz's Dungeon. Have you seen any film that you don't think as highly of as you once thought, mainly due to the fact that you've watched the film way too many times? I haven't really seen any films that, like, I watched them too many times to the point where I don't enjoy them. But I've definitely seen some films so many times to where they don't quite have the same kind of effect. Like the first Monty Python movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's one I've seen so many times. I know every single joke. I know every single shot, every single scene, every single beat. I don't even laugh anymore when I watch that movie. I just kind of put it on and it's just like, it's almost like a comfort food or something. It's just a movie I know so well. I've seen so many times. I've been watching it for so many years. I just put it on. It's like, this is a great scene. But, you know, I'm not laughing. I'm not really reacting in any way. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is a great movie. This is a great scene. Oh, I love that line about the swallows. The Knights Who Say Knee. That's great. So it's not that I no longer enjoy the film. It's just that I don't really watch it in the same way since I've seen it so many times. Oh, Zach Hayes, The Hunt for the Wilder People is definitely worth checking out as well if you can find it. Yeah, same director. I know his name. I think it's Taika Waititi. I'm probably getting that wrong. But yeah, I've been hearing his name every now and again. And I've been hearing good things about his work. Hunt for the Wilder People. Yeah. Yeah, I've been hearing great things about that one as well. He's a New Zealand filmmaker, isn't he? Hunt for the Wilder People. Yeah, I think he also did, what was that show? Flight of the Conchords. If I'm not mistaken, he was involved in that as well, wasn't he? Which my brother's seen that show as well and was telling me how funny it was. But yeah, I don't think I've viewed any of his work yet. But I'll definitely have to check out What We Do in the Shadows, because you're right, that is on Prime, so I can see that. Oh, Ennio Souza. I have 2 films to see. Raw, which I have not seen. That's still on my list. I'm still trying to figure out how to watch that one. And Bad Batch, which is a good one. I like that one. I've been seeing a pretty negative reaction to it, but I thought it was pretty damn good. It's best seen on a big screen, and really just in a theatrical setting. I thought it was extremely engrossing. And what's the word? I'm trying to think, like, when you get pulled in. Damn it, my mind is not working at optimum capacity today. But I found it really engrossing and hypnotic, viewed like on a big screen with a great sound system. I saw it in a terrific theater in Portland, Oregon, and found it to be really engrossing and an incredible, like, visual and aural journey. I don't know how you're gonna watch it, but I imagine probably like viewed on a DVD or VOD or something like that. It's not gonna have quite the same effect, but I do think it is a really good movie, and I'm disappointed that the reaction to that one has been pretty negative, because I do think it's good. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Zach Hayes. Zardoz was interesting. Wizard of Oz is kind of a reference he's referring to without spoiling. It seems like the director was trying to be like Jodorowsky. Didn't really work for Zardoz, in my opinion. I need to check it out. I'm constantly hearing how crazy that movie is. So I might need to see it. You know, now that I think about it, I think my brother might actually own it on Blu-ray. I think like Twilight Time, this company, they released a Blu-ray. I think my brother actually picked it up. I'm trying to think now. I lose track of the movies we own. But I'm gonna write down Zardoz. If my brother does own it, I'll have to watch it, but I can't remember if he does right now. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. Zardoz is an unintentionally hilarious yet insanely surreal film. Yeah, that's about what I've heard. Oh, and again, Chaz's Dungeon. I haven't heard many talk about Lost River, which that is the movie that Ryan Gosling directed, if I'm remembering correctly. What are your thoughts on that film? I personally think that it is hilariously surreal, although quite bland, and at times feels like a student film. I have not seen it, so I cannot comment upon it. And yeah, I have heard very mixed things about it. I think, because I'm pretty sure it's the Ryan Gosling film, the one he wrote and directed. I heard it premiered at Cannes. I heard it got like a really polarized reaction. I'm gonna write that one down too. But I know nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. So I'm gonna have to try and see it then. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. I can understand that motivation for Ronnie Rocket. He seems to only work when he's motivated, which is likely why we won't see another season of Twin Peaks. Well, you know, if he lives long enough and he starts getting the ideas together, it could snowball into something. You never know. Let's see. Oh, Lost River again. Chaz's Dungeon. Although I can understand why people don't talk about Lost River. Oh, the film is quite forgettable. Although that dance scene was baffling and hilarious to experience going in completely blind. Now you've spoiled it. Now I know there's a dance scene that's going to happen. That was probably my favorite scene in Ex Machina, though, when Oscar Isaac does the dance. That was a pretty great scene. Speaking of Danny Boyle, too, that was Alex Garland, which he wrote 28 Days Later. Pretty good Danny Boyle movie. Let's see. I'm going to get to Free Fire in just a second. I think I'm almost to the end of the chat here. Just want to see what else we have. Thank you, Enio Souza. Keep going. Your channel is great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. I think what's important to note about Free Fire is that the film is intentionally not taking itself seriously. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think the film is very much a comedy. It's a straight genre film. I'll talk about it in just a second. I just want to see what else is in the chat here. Oh, and again, Chaz's Dungeon. From the Ben Wheatley films I've seen, Ben Wheatley, the director of Free Fire, this is my favorite, although I do have some annoyances, although I don't consider them to be valid problems. Let's see. Okay, just a few more things. Zach Hayes. 2 of the actors from Flight of the Conchords are in What We Do in the Shadows, but I don't think he did the show. Oh, okay. Gotcha. I made that mistake at first as well. Okay. But yeah, what's that actor's name? He's really good. He's been popping up, like, everywhere now. He was in Flight of the Conchords. I know he's, like, one of the main guys in What We Do in the Shadows. He played the villain in Men in Black 3. I think he was in the BFG. What is that guy's name? He's really good. I cannot remember his name for the life of me right now. I'm sure somebody will mention it. Let's see. Oh, and Zach Hayes' Raw was really good and disturbing. One of my favorites of the year. Yeah, I've been hearing pretty strong reactions to that one. I've still got it on my list. And yeah, I'm hoping to see it one of these days fairly soon. Let's see. Oh gosh. Low Res Wonder Bread. Do you think Jim Carrey is mentally okay? I honestly can't comment upon that. I try not to. I don't really think it's any of my business, you know, people's personal lives, like artists or entertainers. I'm not so much interested in that. I prefer to just focus on the work that they put out there. But I don't know, you know, I've been hearing strange things about Jim Carrey. I don't really keep up with it. I don't really delve into it. So yeah, I'd prefer not to really comment on that. So I don't know. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, I should delve into Free Fire. Yeah, so this is Ben Wheatley's newest film. He's a British filmmaker. I've seen a few of his films previously. He's sort of an up-and-comer right now. Been attracting some attention. He did. What was the first thing of his I saw? I think Kill List was the first movie of his that I ever watched. I remember thinking, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember thinking it was very creepy, very disturbing, very visceral and violent, and kind of strange and surreal. This very unusual mashup of genres, it's sort of like a hitman sort of crime film crossed with like a supernatural, like satanic cult horror movie. It was this weird mishmash, I thought, that was pretty effectively atmospheric and creepy, and I loved the way the characters' mental sanity was constantly brought into question, and you were constantly questioning, like, are we seeing objective reality, or is this kind of like a Shining situation where we're just viewing the film subjectively through a deteriorating mind? I remember liking it, and for a while I've been wanting to go back and rewatch it, because it's been a long time since I've seen it. And then I think after that I saw Sightseers, which is a very, very dark comedy. And I know that it was based pretty specifically in like in British culture, because it's about this couple who, gosh, I'm trying to remember now. Again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think they meet online or something like that. Gosh, I apologize if I'm getting some of these details wrong, but basically they decide to go on a sightseeing trip around England, and on the way, it's revealed that the guy is actually a serial killer or a mass murderer, and so basically every place they go, he ends up committing several horrific, graphic, gory murders, and the woman who he's traveling with, it's sort of an exploration of loneliness and relationships, and kind of how, like, she's so desperate for a companion that even though he is this horribly violent person doing these awful things, it's kind of like how she tries to find a way to live with it, you know, because he also is at the same time very loving and a companion for her, and they do seem to get along. So it's kind of like this subversive take on the relationship movie crossed with like a really gory, dark comedy. Again, a very interesting and strange genre mashup. Very disturbing, but also very, very funny as well. And then... Oh, sorry. Seeing some comments pop up now. I haven't seen... Okay, Chaz's Dungeon. I haven't seen Kill List, although I'm interested in how they execute a hitman horror film. If you spoiled the film, don't worry, I wasn't listening. I don't know what you said. Okay, yeah, sorry, I don't mean to spoil anything. I'm trying to keep it vague. And not, give away any specific details. But then, let's see. Wheatley, he also did A Field in England, which I've heard a bit about. I want to see it. I've heard it's like a period film, kind of like Barry Lyndon, but also with a psychedelic sensibility. I'm curious to see it. It sounds very strange and very interesting, but I have not yet watched it. I did see High Rise, which is an adaptation of J.G. Ballard's novel, which is a novel I loved very much, and I always thought would make a terrific movie. Wheatley finally did it. He adapted High Rise, which is a novel it's like 40 years old at this point, I think, somewhere like that. Finally adapted to the screen. I have to say, Wheatley kind of took it in a direction that I wasn't expecting. The novel, it does have its comedic aspects. I pictured it as more of kind of like a darker kind of film, more of a dramatic kind of film. Wheatley instead chose to emphasize the comedy. He made like just this crazy, surreal, like dark, absurdist comedy, which I thought was an unusual decision. But I did think it paid off in an interesting way. I was very surprised by High Rise. It wasn't what I was expecting, but there were things that I did enjoy about it. I thought there were some good sequences. I liked, the psychedelic approach, the not like of trying to make it kind of feel like a 70s movie, almost like a Ken Russell kind of movie, which I enjoyed. And great performances from, what's his name, Tom Hiddleston, Jeremy Irons, a few others. It's a movie that I have heard very, very negative things about. Just about everyone I talked to about High Rise, they all seem to have hated it. I enjoyed it. I think that's an underrated movie. I think it's worth a look. I liked it, and it's one I tried to defend. I don't think everything about it works. I think maybe it's a little too long, a little too loose on, narrative, maybe a little too repetitious, but I do think there's some really strong stuff in it, and overall it was a movie that I did enjoy. So it's one that I tried to defend. But I like that Wheatley, with every film, he's trying to get more ambitious, he's trying to really attempt different things, really stretch his muscles as a filmmaker, do things he hasn't done before, try to mix genres in an interesting way. Free Fire, his latest, is more straightforward. It's more of like just a straightforward kind of genre film. It's an action film. And basically, the concept is, it's just basically one long shootout. The setup is, there's a weapons deal, a group of people get together in a warehouse, they're going to exchange cash and guns, an argument develops, it quickly escalates, gets out of hand, a shootout starts, and it basically continues for 90 minutes. The whole movie is basically one single shootout in one single warehouse that progresses in real time. That's an interesting idea. When I first heard about the concept behind this movie, I thought, like, that sounds really interesting. That could be really good. And now that I've finally seen it, I'm really glad to say I think the execution, is as good as I could have hoped for. Really fast, really entertaining, really fun, really stylish, and with an expertly executed craftsmanship behind it. Like, there are a million ways this could have gone wrong. It could have gotten boring. It could have gotten repetitive. It could have been unimaginative. But Wheatley finds a lot of really interesting ways to sustain the idea, to develop the idea, to give it a rhythm, to give it a sense of progression. It's not just nonstop bang, bang, bang. It kind of has, the shootout progresses through different movements. The stakes are raised. The drama escalates. It's really well done. It's as well done as I could have hoped for. And I'm curious to see that, like, on Rotten Tomatoes and other places, that it's getting a really mixed reaction. I thought this movie, I thought it would get, like, Baby Driver level acclaim. I thought it was, as good an action movie as I've ever seen. I thought it was really, really good. Taking, the usual cliches and the usual, like, action movie tropes, re-injecting them with a new sense of vigor and vitality and humor. I loved this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. Very funny, with a lot of really specific characters and well-observed dialogue. I loved how... I love the ensemble cast. There's some great actors here, like Sharlto Copley and Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, Cillian Murphy, Sam Riley, all of them playing very distinct characters, all of them given very specific dialogue and like a specific kind of role to play, in the context of the shootout. I loved every choice. I loved I loved how like the arguments never stop. I loved how it takes it is stylized, it is very heightened, but also at the same time, it does have a level of realism to it as well. Like how it's how it shows, like in a shootout, the bullets aren't the only thing to watch out for. The bullets aren't the only danger. Ricochets and shrapnel get incorporated in interesting ways. And also just the confusion that you see in a shootout. Like, every shootout you see in a movie, like, nobody seems to really lose track of, okay, here's where these people are. They seem to have, like, kind of a sixth sense of just knowing where everyone is and knowing exactly where to shoot and who to hit. And I liked how this film kind of got into how if you're just a person in a shootout, it's chaos and confusion and you lose track of where everyone is and whose side everyone is on. I thought that paid off in interesting, funny ways. Yeah, I just thought this was a really terrific, really solidly entertaining movie from start to finish. Well written, well acted, very well acted, and really well directed. All of Wheatley's choices I just thought were spot on, that he made as a director, of deciding like of not to make the movie the way most action movies are made, where basically everything is done in post, you know, like every muzzle flash on the guns, every like bullet hit in the background, that all gets, you know, done in computers later on now. And I really loved that Wheatley, he wanted more of a physicality, and he wanted to do everything as much as possible in camera. So like every time you see an actor fire a gun, every time you see, you know, a bullet hit in the background in concrete or spark against metal, that's all like a squib that was set up on set. Every time an actor gets hit and blood spurts out, that's a physical squib that they've put on the actors and set off. I love that he made that decision to do the whole thing in camera that way, in more of an old-fashioned kind of filmmaking. And the fact that the movie takes place in the 70s, that feels entirely appropriate to me, and it gives more of a sense of danger, more of a sense of realism, more of a physicality, more of a sense of weight, you know, to everything that you're seeing. And the other great decision that I loved is the sound design. I think someone mentioned the sound design here in the chat. I'm going to try and find it. Falling behind. Oh yeah, Chaz's Dungeon. I watched the film in cinemas, and Free Fire was very loud with its gun sound effects, which I loved. Yeah, even watching it on DVD, that is something that stands out, is that the sound design for all of the gun sound effects is very well done. And again, that was a decision that Ben Wheatley made, that they weren't going to use any pre-existing sound effects. They weren't going to use any stock sound effects. They were going to go out to firing ranges, and every single gun sound effect that you hear, every time a bullet goes off, every time a bullet ricochets, every time, you know, you get the sound of like an empty cartridge hitting the ground, everything was designed from scratch. They built all of the sound effects themselves, and it makes a difference. You know, it gives the film an impact that it otherwise wouldn't have had. And yeah, this to me is just exemplary action filmmaking. Like, if you're gonna do a cinematic shootout, this is the way to do it. Like John Woo kind of style, but less operatic. You know, there's nobody diving around. There's no like acrobatics or anything like that. It's basically everyone's constantly on the ground. Everyone's constantly, you know, desperate and frightened and just trying to stay alive and trying to keep their heads together. And like once they take a hit, then it's kind of like that gets incorporated in interesting ways. You know, once someone gets shot in the leg, you know, they can't really run around or do anything anymore. They just kind of have to drag themselves along the ground. I really loved how the film just took an idea, it committed to it. It's saying like, okay, like we're going to establish these sets of rules and we're going to stay with it the entire way through. And I thought the results were pretty spectacular. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It's a sheer entertainment, and I highly recommend it to any fans of genre filmmaking of this type. and to me, yeah, it's a further development for Ben Wheatley, showing that he can mix genres in interesting ways. He can adopt all these different styles, but also if he's just going to do something simple and straightforward, I mean, he's going to do it as well as he can possibly do it, which is pretty damn good. So yeah, I really enjoyed Free Fire, and I'm taking a look at the chat now to see what else we got here. Zach Hayes, Free Fire reminded me of a funny version of Reservoir Dogs. Well, Reservoir Dogs is also like a funny version of Reservoir Dogs. I think there's a lot of comedy to Reservoir Dogs, but I agree with you that Free Fire it's sillier. It does have, yeah, more of a sillier kind of sensibility. The comedy is emphasized quite a bit more. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Mr. Putler Gollum, Mother is underrated. That it is. Yeah. I talked about that last week. And talking about It, too. Again, Mr. Putler Gollum. It's shitty that It gets so much praise, lol. Well, I haven't seen It, so I can't comment upon it. I don't want to judge a movie that I haven't seen. But yeah, that movie has been getting a lot of praise. I will admit, yeah, I've been seeing that it's been getting a lot of praise. Haven't seen it yet. I probably will at some point. But yeah, I'll try to approach it with an open mind. But yeah, it sucks that, yeah, Mother is kind of, at least by audiences. I think critics, are finding things to appreciate, but yeah, audiences are really not liking Mother, unfortunately. But I guess that's to be expected with the nature of the film, unfortunately. Let's see. Chaz's Dungeon. I agree. Okay, talking about Free Fire. I agree with you. The film is a great idea film that was executed very well. I'm surprised that it received mixed reviews. And I'm surprised that people took the film seriously. Are they? Is this like a Dark Star situation where people don't realize it's supposed to be funny? Like, I don't understand that sometimes. Like, this to me, Free Fire seems like it's so obviously a comedy. There are so many points where, like, it just seems blaringly obvious to me that you're supposed to be laughing. So I'm surprised to hear that some people are taking it as like a like serious drama or action film. It definitely has serious moments, but most of it is I think supposed to be very funny. Yeah, I heard Dark Star suffered, John Carpenter's first film, Dark Star, it suffered from the same fate. When it was initially released, people thought it was supposed to be like 2001, a serious sci-fi movie, which again, Dark Star, it's so silly. How can you miss the comedy in that movie? But apparently a lot of people did. It took a while for people to realize, like, oh, this is supposed to be funny. Let's see what else we got here. Josso1. I love T2. Probably unpopular opinion. But I think it's as good as the original. Good editing, structure, cinematography, etc. You know what, Josso? I'm going to say I agree with you. I thought T2 was excellent, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. I want to see what else we got in the chat here. Hello, Jackie. Welcome. Glad you could join us. Howdy, everyone. Hello, Ryan Smith. Hello. Yes, glad everyone can make it. So happy to see you. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. Being one who was in an airsoft match, the film perfectly executed the tense sense of being in a gunfight and the unpredictability that comes with that gunfight. Yeah, I did love that about Free Fire. And I love all the little character beats too, when you cut to like a pair of characters like hunkered down behind cover and they're trying to just like make sense of what's been happening. There's a great moment with Armie Hammer and Charlton Copley where they're talking about Brie Larson's character, and I think Charlton Copley is saying something like, see, I told you she was on their side, and Armie Hammer's like, but if she's on our side, why did they shoot her? Or wait, did we shoot her? And they can't remember like exactly what happens. It's all just been such chaos that they're like, wait a minute, what happened? Who's on whose side? Yeah, I love that, how that's incorporated in fun comedic ways like that. Let's see. Josso, does anyone run 70s films through a compressor, or is that just me? Maybe it's just from watching them at night? Are you just talking about like the grain in 70s films or something? Yeah, well, that's the nature of the film stock sometimes. Older film stock, yeah, it could be a little rough. If I'm understanding the comment correctly, I apologize if I'm misinterpreting this. Also, in the 70s, it was kind of like, it was a fashion at the time. It was kind of like, it was a trend at that time to kind of dirty up the image a little bit, to try and make it grainier and rougher, use a lot of filters and processes on the film stock to try and give it like a rough kind of texture. So if I'm understanding your comment correctly, I believe that is intentional with a lot of 70s films. Now, because we have like 3D and we have 4K TVs, it's all about sharpness and clarity and high resolution. In the 70s, it was kind of the opposite. You know, they really wanted to rough up the images much more then. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. Ben Wheatley edited this film while filming, which makes it that much more impressive. Yeah, he and his wife, Amy Jump, they co-wrote the film, and yeah, they co-edited it together. Yeah, I also listened to this audio commentary too, on the DVD. I believe he said that, like, yeah, just in bed, like, every night after filming, they just kind of sit together and they'd, like, pass the laptop back and forth and, like, cut scenes and then look at it and think, like, okay, we missed this shot, we definitely need an insert of this, so we'll have to make sure we get that tomorrow. Which is a really interesting way to make a film. I don't know if I've ever heard of that before, but it sounds like it'd be a lot of fun, yeah, to cut your footage every day, you know, in bed with your wife that night. It's like, oh yeah, that's good. Okay, I need to make sure I get that shot. That's definitely a way to make a movie. Roy O'Connor, thoughts on Rick and Morty and BoJack Horseman. Unfortunately, I have not seen Rick and Morty. I have not seen BoJack Horseman, so I cannot comment upon them. But I might have to watch them since you're mentioning them. I'll put them down. I did finally watch Fargo. I just finished season 1 of Fargo, so I finally got on that one. I haven't started season 2 yet, but I'm going to. So let's see, Rick and Morty, which I've been hearing a lot about. Everyone's always telling me how funny Rick and Morty is, so I might have to finally see it. BoJack Horseman, which I'm also constantly hearing great things about. Alright, I'll try and make sure I see those. But yeah, Fargo was really good. I was very impressed. Yeah, that was an idea. When I heard they were doing a TV show based on Fargo, it was, I guess because there have been so many television shows fairly recently that have been based on, like, classic movies. I was kind of like, oh great, here comes another one. Who cares? But yeah, this one has been sticking around and been getting great reviews, winning a lot of awards. And yeah, I finally sat down and went through the first season. It's good. Like, I have to admit, it was weird at first. Like the first couple episodes, like just getting settled into it and realizing, like, okay, this isn't the Coen brothers. This is something else. The show is taking the mythology and the tone and the mix of comedy and violence, and it's going in its own direction with it, trying to build its own identity, its own style. Okay. And after, like, I'd say 4 or 5 episodes, I was pretty into it. I got very invested in the story. There are lots of really interesting twists and turns and clever ways that the film, the Coen brothers film, is incorporated into the story and elaborated upon in unexpected ways. I thought it was very clever the way they tied it all together and the unexpected yet directions that the story takes. Some great performances. Billy Bob Thornton as I guess you could say the first season's antagonist. He was excellent. Really excellent. Like, that's maybe one of his best performances is as that hitman in the first season of Fargo. He was really good. And there were some other great performances as well, like from actors I didn't really recognize, and also from some familiar faces too. Talking about 70s films, Keith Carradine. Yeah, it was great seeing Keith Carradine in something again. Keith Carradine is such an underrated actor. He was in a bunch of Robert Altman movies in the 70s. He was in, like, McCabe and Mrs. Miller and Thieves Like Us, and what was the other one? Nashville. Every time I see Keith Carradine in a movie, I'm always like, God, he's such a great actor. He's so underrated. He does not get the recognition he deserves. So it was great seeing him in a recurring role in Fargo, and really low key. You know, the whole series is like the Coens, kind of played low key, with moments, where the violence suddenly comes in and punctuates things in really visceral ways. But yeah, Keith Carradine, he plays like a father to one of the characters, sort of like, I guess you could call her the protagonist, sort of like the Marge Gunderson kind of character in the series. He plays her father, and he's so good. He's so good. So many little, moments where he just does a simple little thing. There's a moment where I don't want to do any spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. But yeah, there's a moment where there's kind of a perilous situation and somebody gets hurt. And then I don't want to give away, I really don't want to spoil it. But basically there's just a scene where he kind of shows up for his daughter in a really vulnerable moment, and he's kind of like throughout the whole series, he's like trying to talk her out of, because she's a cop, he's trying to talk her out of being in the police force because he worries about her and the danger that she's in, you know, with the Billy Bob Thornton character doing what he's doing. And there's just a little moment like where he kind of just pats her on the wrist and says, "I'm proud of you." And it's just such a simple little moment, but he plays it so beautifully. It just breaks your heart. But yeah, love the performances, love the story. I was very impressed by season 1 of Fargo. Gonna go into season 2, hopefully fairly soon. But yeah, who would have thought a television series based on Fargo would actually be that good? It's always nice to be proven wrong. But let's see. What else we got in the chat here? Kind of went off a little bit there. Oh, back to Free Fire. Chaz's Dungeon. I just love how bullets were represented as insults in the films. Yeah, it's kind of like a punctuation throughout the movie. I love, too, the lack of cooperation in the movie, too. You know, you've basically got two sides, but both sides on the shootout in Free Fire, they don't get along. Nobody really gets along. It's kind of like, once your ass is on the line, it's kind of like, hey, I'm watching out for myself. So I loved all the moments like with Charlton Copley like yelling out at other characters like, hey, cover me, hey, watch me, hey, get the money. And like the only response he gets is like, fuck you, fuck off. I'm not gonna risk my ass for you. I'm watching out for myself. I really enjoyed that as well. So yeah, I like the constant bickering that happens, yeah, and the constant comedic drama that is happening throughout the whole movie. It's and that is definitely one thing I appreciated most about it, is that it's about guns, it's about a shootout, but it never loses track of the characters. Like the characters, Ben Wheatley, like he and the screenplay by Wheatley and Amy Jump, it keeps such a firm grasp on the characters and who they are and how they would react in every situation. It never loses track of that, no matter how chaotic it gets. And I thought that was pretty impressive, that it remained such a character-driven movie the whole way through. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, I think I'm falling behind now. Roy O'Connor, I really liked Free Fire. Glad to hear it. I really liked it as well. Let's see. Oh, okay. Really liked Free Fire. Chaz's Dungeon, same. The film Free Fire is on my list of best of the year. If I hadn't seen, okay, I'm thinking if I didn't see It Comes at Night and A Ghost Story. Okay, so I'm guessing yeah, those must be on your list too. You're always mentioning It Comes at Night. I still haven't seen it, damn it. I can't remember if I already wrote it down on my list, but I'm going to write it down again, just in case. It Comes at Night. Yeah, you were right, like, about people not really getting that movie either. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really comment, like, for certain on it. But I've been hearing great things about it, and I was on, what was I on? Amazon. I was like scrolling through Amazon a couple days ago, and I saw that movie is now, or it's coming up or something, to rent or purchase through VOD. And like the average star rating for customers is incredibly low. It's at like 2 stars or something like that. I was astonished to see that, because it's at like a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes or something really high like that. And then the audience rating, yeah, it's such a contrast. I was shocked to see that. So yeah, you must really have a point about, yeah, people not really understanding what It Comes at Night is trying to do in terms of horror. I'm guessing, at least. I haven't seen the movie yet, so... But just going off of your comments, it's kind of interesting to see. I'm writing down A Ghost Story as well. I did see, for Joel Edgerton, though, I did see the movie he wrote and directed, called The Gift, which was really, really good. Anyone who hasn't seen The Gift yet, that is a really terrific thriller. Yeah, really clever subversion on like the Stalker film. I didn't really know anything about it going into it. I don't want to spoil anything, but the premise is kind of one you're very familiar with. You know, you've got an idyllic couple, newly married. They move into a new house. You know, they're happy, they're successful, everything's good. A sinister kind of character played by Joel Edgerton comes into their lives and starts to bring this creepy sense of dread into it. The tension starts developing, the dread starts developing, but the way it pays off is so interesting and so unexpected, and such a clever twist on that formula. I was really taken by surprise by it. If you like talking to Chaz's Dungeon, if you liked It Comes at Night, and you haven't seen The Gift, I highly recommend that one. It's really, really good. Really clever, really well written, really well acted, really well directed as well. Joel Edgerton really proves himself to be kind of a Renaissance cinema man with that one. Acting, writing, directing. I think he produced it as well. Really damn impressive. But yeah, The Gift is definitely worth a look for anyone who hasn't seen it. Don't want to spoil it. Don't want to say anything more than that. Just sit down, watch it, and I mean, just go along with it. I certainly did not see where it was going. Roy O'Connor, It. I liked it. Okay, some positive feedback on It. Thought Mother was great. Okay, yeah, Mother it's a polarizing one. It's inspiring some extreme reactions, which is fascinating to watch. Let's see. What else we got here? Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. Okay, talking about like your list for best of the year. The reason being is due to the fact that films like La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, and others were released in 2017 from me. Okay. Yeah, don't you live in Australia or something? I can't remember. I'm sorry if I lose track of these things. But yeah, I forget where you live. Yeah, it can be kind of weird, yeah, with release schedules for movies sometimes. Josso1, I had to look up whether Steve Buscemi was in Reservoir Dogs. How could you forget? I recently watched Boardwalk Empire. I've heard good things about that one. He's not the best, but he's a pretty good actor. Well, hold on. Steve Buscemi is the best. I take offense at that, sir. Steve Buscemi is the best. He's a great actor. Yeah, any Coen Brothers movie. Talking about Fargo, Buscemi's great in that. Yeah, Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, he's great in that. What are some of his other... He's a great character actor. I'm trying to think of, like, big roles for him, though. Actually, there's a really underrated Tom DeSillo movie called Delirious, where Buscemi plays a paparazzi photographer. He's excellent in that movie, and Delirious is a really underrated, underseen film. Like, every Tom DeSillo movie is so underrated, so underseen. I love Tom DeSillo, and it seems like hardly anybody knows about him or his work. Buscemi also starred in, I think it was DeSillo's first movie called Living in Oblivion, which is about a low-budget film production and kind of all the troubles that this production faces just trying to film a simple scene one day of their production. Kind of an autobiographical work on just the nightmare of indie filmmaking, and Steve Buscemi plays the director in that one. That's a really good one. Talking about more DeSillo movies, Johnny Suede with Brad Pitt, one of Brad Pitt's earliest roles. That's a really good one. Box of Moonlight with John Turturro and Sam Rockwell. That's a really good one. Gosh, what else did DeSillo do? I think he's done a couple others. He did a documentary on the Doors called When You're Strange that was really good. But yeah, I love Tom DeSillo. I cannot, if you've never seen a Tom DeSillo movie, cannot recommend those highly enough. Maybe start with Living in Oblivion. That's kind of like, that's one of his most iconic films. But yeah, Delirious, Box of Moonlight, Johnny Suede, they're all worth a look. Let's see. Are we talking about Free Fire? Chaz's Dungeon? People complained about character development, which didn't seem like a problem in my opinion. If we're talking about Free Fire, I guess I could understand that, but I don't know. I read it as being like a genre film. So all of the characters, they were painted in these broad strokes. You know, they had to be these really broad kind of characters that, yeah, you can easily distinguish from one another. They're played for comedy, and yeah, they have a function, you know, in the shootout that takes place. But yeah, I guess for me, yeah, it wasn't really a film about character development, so I didn't mind that. You know, I had no trouble like understanding like, okay, Sam Riley, he's like kind of the Weasley character. Like, okay, Sharlto Copley, he's kind of like this vain, narcissistic character. Armie Hammer is kind of like the smooth, professional. Cillian Murphy's kind of like the likable sort of protagonist. Brie Larson's kind of like the ambiguous sort of femme fatale kind of. Yeah, for me that all worked. You know, I didn't really demand anything more than that. Again, just because of the straightforwardness and the simplicity of the film itself. So I just kind of got into the immediacy of the situation and just really enjoyed it from beat to beat. So yeah, the character development, that whole question, didn't really bother me. Didn't really occur to me at all. There was never a point where I was thinking like, I'd like to know more about these people or anything like that. I was just focusing on like, okay, now we're here, now we're here, now we're here. It's all about real-time, immediate development. And I think it works very well on that level. Zach Hayes, I recently got Filmstruck. It's an awesome service. It has pretty much any classic you can think of, and all of the bonus features of Criterion, and new introductions and interviews. Holy shit. Yeah, I want to get Filmstruck. If I do, I'll let you know. But yeah, there's so much Criterion stuff I want to watch. I never got the chance while it was still on Hulu. But yeah, I wanna get into Filmstruck. I'd really like to. We'll see if I ever get the money any one of these days. Hopefully. But yeah. I browsed their selection not too long ago, and yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Let's see. Oh, Josso. Okay, talking about the 70s thing. Dynamic range compression of the audio. Okay. I don't mind grain or anything like that. I wouldn't want to mess with the picture. Okay, so you're talking about audio. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know a lot about like technical processes like that. So yeah, unfortunately I can't really comment on that in depth as far as like audio compression. You might want to talk to my brother about that. He understands a lot more about that kind of stuff than I do. Let's see. Wow, Zach Hayes again. Filmstruck. This is free advertising for Filmstruck. Filmstruck has everything a film lover wants, from silent films all the way up to 2016. Yeah, I would love to get a subscription for myself. We'll see if I ever do. Jordan Saward. God, I'm sorry. I'll just call you Jordan. I apologize for messing up your name that badly. What was the reception of The Fountain or Noah on release? It seems Aronofsky's religious excursions have often been misunderstood. Let's see. Noah, I am not sure. I didn't actually really pay close attention to Noah when it first came out. But The Fountain, I know it did get a mixed reception. I think it was pretty polarized. I think it was about right down the middle. There were half that really liked it and half that really didn't like it. I remember even the first time I saw it, I was kind of disappointed. It felt to me kind of like just this jumble of ideas that didn't really have a clear direction. But it's one that I've been constantly drawn back to and that I've revisited several times. And every time I watch it, like, I get more and more out of it. And it's a film that now I have a great deal of respect for, and that I enjoy quite a bit. Certainly visually, it's astonishing. And yeah, the fact that he is trying to grapple with these vast, unknowable questions, and yeah, trying to explore them in the context of filmmaking and storytelling, it's impressively ambitious. But yeah, I think the Fountain is, in its way, a pretty spectacular film. I don't like it as much as Pi. It doesn't feel as like fully realized to me as something like Pi or Requiem for a Dream. Those first two of his, I think, are still his finest achievements. But The Fountain is really damn good. It is. I think all of his films are really impressive or special in some kind of way. He's just one of those filmmakers, you know, where everything he does, it's worth seeing for one reason or another. Even if you dislike it, it's, you know, it's going to have an effect on you. It's going to do something to you. Let's see. More Filmstruck. Zach Hayes, Filmstruck. Oh. Turner Classic Movies teamed up with Criterion. Wow. I did not know Turner Classic Movies was involved with Filmstruck. If you didn't know, yeah, I didn't. They add stuff every week. Wow. So they must have a huge collection then. Yeah, I love Turner Classic Movies. They're always, yeah, that's the one reason I wish I had cable. The only two channels I would actually like, I don't have a cable television, but yeah, the only two channels I would watch if I did would be Turner Classic Movies and El Rey, which El Rey is always playing great stuff too. But yeah, there's always stuff on Turner Classic Movies that I've never seen, I've never heard of. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be great. Wow. God damn it. This isn't a good time for me to commit to another subscription service, but yeah, I'll have to try and figure out if I can do that at some point in the future. You're really selling it. Do you work for Filmstruck or something? Because you're really doing a good job selling it. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. The Fountain is a film that received a negative response when released, although I don't understand that response. The film is so well made, in my opinion. Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with that. That is, whatever you can criticize about The Fountain, certainly on a technical level, on, yeah, just a sheer craft level, really nothing you can complain about there. It's amazingly well shot. Let's see. Oh, and Chaz's Dungeon again. Talking about The Fountain, I honestly think that the film is easy to understand. The film highlights events... The film highlights that the events that take place correspond with each other. Yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of found that ambiguous. Like, I've never really been sure with The Fountain whether, like, every story, because it's got the three separate stories. There's a conquistador story, then there's the modern day story with the doctor, and then there's the future story with the astronaut. I've never really been sure, like, if they're all supposed to be literal stories that are happening simultaneously across time, or if two of the stories are meant to be in Izzy's book, the Rachel Weisz character, if they're meant to represent the stories that she's writing in her book, and that they're meant to comment on just the present story, and the stuff with the disease and Hugh Jackman as the doctor, if that's meant to be the only literal story, and the other two function as metaphor, or if they're all meant to be actually happening. I've always kind of had trouble grappling with that, but maybe I'm overthinking it. But yeah, that's been something I've always kind of questioned watching the movie, is how much to take as metaphor and how much to take as, like, literal events that are taking place. So that's always been kind of my trouble, like, figuring out the movie. But it is fascinating for that reason. Oh, Zach Hayes, Rick and Morty is awesome. On HBO, the show called Room 104. It's an interesting anthology show that takes place in a hotel room by the Duplass brothers. Okay. Room 104? I will write it down. Room 104. I'm not really familiar with the Duplass brothers yet. They're pretty prolific from what I've seen. but I haven't really taken the time to look at any of their work yet, as far as I'm aware. Is this directed to me? Chaz's Dungeon, do you have any problems with Free Fire? Not that I can recall. I don't recall really anything that really stood out to me as a major problem. It was a movie that I found pretty easy to enjoy. Yes, I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as like one of the greatest movies ever made. I'd certainly describe it as one of the most effective and one of the most well-crafted action movies that I've ever seen. And yeah, for me, that's enough. Those were the only expectations I had going in. Like, okay, give me an exciting, funny, well-made action movie, and it delivered on that in flying colors. So I can't really say I have any complaints as far as Free Fire goes. Let's see. Oh, going back to Aronofsky. Okay, not really directed at me, but some interesting comments from Jordan. The Fountain was like a fever dream to me. I enjoyed it. I feel like Mother is a thematic mixture of the religious subtext of The Fountain and the shocking nature of Requiem. It's not a bad analysis. Oh, Lorez Wonderbread, do you listen to or follow any modern philosophers like Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson? I do not. I'm sorry to say. I might have to look into them, though. Let's see. Not really a movie, but I'll make a note so I don't forget. Sam Harris. Do these guys have, like, podcasts or something? Where do I find their work? Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson. Peterson. Okay. I'll at least look into it. Jack, welcome. I loved Free Fire. Hi, friends. Glad to hear it. Let's see. Josso, anyone seen Room 2015? Really hit me with the feels. Yeah, that's the Brie Larson movie, right? I liked it. Thought it was very good. Indeed. Very emotional film. I was not expecting, to be hit as hard by that one as I was. Yeah, the first half, when they're actually trapped in the room, that was almost unbearably tense for me. Like, I actually had difficulty getting through that first half. That was tough. That was really tough. Little too believable for me, like with the acting and the directing. It felt too real to me. I had a tough time handling it. But, yeah, and then in the second half, examining the repercussions of that, it hits you pretty hard. I have to admit, I was not expecting to be as emotionally overwhelmed by that film as I was. It's definitely worth a look, for anyone who hasn't seen it. Uh-oh. Zach Hayes. It Comes at Night was definitely interesting. I just wish they cut the ending a little sooner without spoiling it. Okay. Oh, and Chaz's Dungeon, I need to see The Gift. Yeah, check it out. Check out The Gift. That comes highly recommended from me. And I will be sure to see It Comes at Night at some point. I will. Oh, Zach Hayes, I can't wait to see A Ghost Story. Comes out on DVD in October. Yeah, I've been hearing good things about that one as well. Hopefully I'll be able to, get a DVD from the library or something. Oh, Zach Hayes, The Gift was a real good first film. My mom actually really liked it as well. She hates most of my films. Well, I'm glad you found one you both could enjoy. Oh, Josso. Also, you should really watch Boardwalk Empire. It's amazing. All right. The list gets longer and longer. Boardwalk Empire. Yeah, I think my brother watched like the first season of that, or the first couple seasons, and he was saying it was really good. Yeah, I think, I know they've got a ton of HBO stuff on Amazon to stream, so I can probably watch it on there. Let's see, Jordan again. Thoughts on Zazie dans le métro? 1960. Louis Malle delivers another masterclass in visual comedy and editing. Reminds me of Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and Scott Pilgrim visual style. Gosh, it's been a long time since I've seen Zazie. I do own that Criterion Blu-ray, and I love Louis Malle. He's another, I think, just really underrated, underappreciated filmmaker. Like, just about every Malle film I've seen has been so good, like Elevator to the Gallows, the dinner one, My Dinner with Andre, Damage with Jeremy Irons and Juliette Binoche. What was the other ones? He did a remake of that that Italian film. I think it was called Crackers with Donald Sutherland. It was one of his first American films. I remember really, really liking that one as well. But yeah, Louis Malle's really underrated. He's done so many movies, so many great movies. Black Moon is another great one, a really surreal, dreamlike film. Kind of like, I don't want to say in the vein of David Lynch, because it's not quite that harsh. But yeah, a really interesting surrealist work as well. He was kind of a chameleon. He could go into any style. Yeah. I'm always, yeah, every time I see one of his movies, I'm always very impressed. And yeah, Zazie is like, it's like just a crazy, absurd, slapstick kind of comedy. Just free form, very French New Wave. It's a good one. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, I remember really enjoying the zaniness of it, and I'd like to go back to it, because yeah, it's so unpredictable, it's so creative, and so joyous. I remember having a great time with it, but I only saw it the one time, so it's, you know what, just to make sure I do go back and revisit it, I'm going to write that one down. Even though I've seen it, it's time to rewatch it. Zazie dans le métro. In a weird way, it's kind of like a perfect representation of the French New Wave. Kind of like Breathless, you know? That it was just improvisatory, that it was creative, original, strange. It's just kind of like live in the moment, have an idea, go for it, you know, any direction you want. It's kind of a representation of just the free form, creative vitality of that era in some kind of weird way. Let's see. Oh, Ryan Smith, Steve Buscemi is great in Mystery Train too. Yeah, I forgot he was in that. He is, yeah. Oh, and Jordan again. Living in Oblivion is great. So absurd, sprinkles of Lynch. Yeah, that was probably intentional. Like the crew in that movie, the movie within the movie that they're making. Yeah, I think it's deliberately meant to be like kind of this cheap Lynchian knockoff, but that's kind of part of the comedy of that film as well. Oh gosh, I can't believe I forgot about that one. Jackie, Steve Buscemi in Ghost World is iconic as well. Yeah, he's fantastic in that movie. Kind of playing like a version of R. Crumb in an interesting way. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that one. Ghost World is great. One of my favorites. Chaz's Dungeon. I consider myself lucky to have seen A Ghost Story and Red Turtle in cinemas. Although you all need to watch those films. If you're impatient, then I can't guarantee that you'll love A Ghost Story. Although despite the type of film A Ghost Story is, the film has been received quite well. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of good things about it. And The Red Turtle, oh my god, that is such a beautiful, beautiful film. I saw that one not too long ago. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. Anybody who loves animation or Studio Ghibli stuff, it's not... it wasn't produced in-house at Studio Ghibli, but Studio Ghibli did produce The Red Turtle, kind of like as an as like an international co-production with, I think he's a Belgian animator. I can't remember his name. But yeah, it was basically like a situation where some people at Studio Ghibli, like I think Hayao Miyazaki, like saw some of this guy's short films and just thought like, holy shit, like this guy's great. We should produce his first feature film. And they just contacted him out of the blue and said like, hey, you want to do a feature? And he just came up with the idea for The Red Turtle and then just started doing it. And yeah, man, Red Turtle deservedly like earns a place like in the official Ghibli pantheon. Like, it's as good as something like Spirited Away or Ponyo, Princess Mononoke. It is beautiful, haunting, heartbreaking. It's incredible. I cried so many times. I love that movie. Fall Sticks, welcome. Glad you could be here. Let's see, Volstix. Wrote on my hand to remember to ask you, Henry, have you seen that kind of modern-day fairy tale with Jim Sturgis and Jeffrey Rush? Gonna IMDb title, Rush plays a lawyer in charge of liquidating this mansion's heiress, but she has a thing about never being seen. They communicate solely through this door. Great little film. Oh, what is that movie? I think it's called The Best Offer. Yeah, it's by this... I'm pretty sure it's the one I'm thinking of, yeah. I think it's called The Best Offer. It's by this Italian director, Giuseppe Tornatore, I think his name is. He directed Cinema Paradiso. Yeah, that was a good one. I did like that one. Jeffrey Rush is always great. I feel like I don't really see him in enough movies anymore, but yeah, every time he does something, he's always excellent. I loved him in that movie where he played the Marquis de Sade. Quills! I thought Quills was a really underrated film. Kind of an overlooked gem, I think. But yeah, I love Jeffrey Rush. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the one you're talking about is called The Best Offer. And yeah, that is a good one. Yeah, I did like that one. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. Going back to the fountain. I doubt much is literal, although the modern day setting is literal, I believe. Okay. And Volstix, are you talking about the fountain? Yeah, we are talking about the fountain. I go with what you last said, Henry. There's actually only one timeline, and they are the stories in her book. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I've never been quite sure how to read it. I always, like, because I love the fantastic settings of, like, the Inquisition storyline and, like, the bubble spaceship going through space. I love those concepts, and I'm always trying to find ways to read them as, like, somehow being, like, the same character reincarnated over 3 separate eras, but, yeah, every time I see it, I feel like maybe that doesn't quite work. I don't know. I'm never quite sure every time I watch it. It's a film that, I don't know, is so visually overwhelming. I find myself, just looking at the images and just kind of letting it wash over me and not spending as much time as I should, like, really trying to interpret what I'm seeing. That's my problem a lot. I tend to watch movies just on a gut level. I'm just looking at things and feeling things and just reacting in an emotional way. I'm not the best person at, like, analyzing and interpreting and picking things apart and intellectualizing. That doesn't tend to be the way that I watch movies. So, I can emotionally interpret a film like The Fountain, but as far as, like, picking apart the symbolism and everything, that I'm not as good at, unfortunately. Oh, Josso, Fury Road was my favorite action movie for a long time. I wouldn't put it in my top 25 21st century films, which a lot of people do. Yeah, I liked Fury Road too. It took me a while to warm up to that one. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but I've rewatched it like a couple times, and every time I rewatch it, I enjoy it more and more. Just appreciating the level of craft behind it, the level of detail that went into creating the world, the wonderful little characters, here and there, the lines of dialogue. It's, yeah, it's quite a, what's the word? Yeah, it's quite a deliriously entertaining, crazed kind of movie. I do love that about George Miller and the Mad Max movies. Nobody does the post-apocalypse like he does. Yeah, and the Max movies, they always have, like, really great ideas and really great concepts. And Beyond Thunderdome, is a really underrated one too. I think all four of those movies are excellent in their own ways. Like Beyond Thunderdome has some great stuff. Master Blaster, I mean, that's a great character. Bartertown, yeah, all of these great concepts behind each of the movies. Each one is so different from the previous one. It's one of the most unusual, like, film series in that way, in that they don't really have a progressing story. They do sort of, vaguely, but it's mostly like an anthology series. Like, each one tries to go in a different direction, which I think is interesting. Let's see. Chaz's Dungeon. Have you heard of Room 237? I don't understand the positive response. Yeah, that's the documentary on, well, sort of The Shining. Mostly it's a documentary about the way people interpret The Shining. But I do think that is a fascinating one. I think that is a fascinating documentary. Not because, I really agree with the ideas and the explorations that are portrayed in it. I don't think Kubrick really intended to layer all of these hidden codes or messages in The Shining. But I do think it's fascinating just in the way that it tries to illuminate the mythology that has developed around Stanley Kubrick, that he is he is such an iconic filmmaker, and his movies have had such an impact, and they fascinate people so deeply that they are willing to see, all of these incredible, strange, insane conspiracy theories in his work. I don't look at it as like a movie that's trying to say, look at all the things that are in The Shining. Look at what Kubrick was trying to convey in The Shining. I don't think that's the intention behind it. I think the intent is more like, look at the way Kubrick's films continue to fascinate people. Look at the impact that Kubrick's films continue to have on people. Look, what is it about his work that draws this kind of incredibly enthusiastic response? What is it that drives this level of obsession and attention to detail? There's something in his work that really hypnotizes and that really inspires, a level of obsession that almost no other filmmaker inspires. And so I find it fascinating for that reason, just as an examination of Kubrick and the continued fascination that his films have for so many different people. Oh, Mirror Saw, did I miss the T2 discussion? No, I'm still trying to get there, damn it. I'm just trying to go through the chat, though. Sorry, I'm going to mute the mic for a second so I can blow my nose. I don't want you to have to listen to that. Ah, nasty. Let's see what else we got here. Oh gosh, I think I'm falling way behind again. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Jordan Peterson. Yeah, that's the name I wrote down earlier. Ball Sticks. Jordan Peterson's psych talks are really interesting, but I find his views on the transgender community pretty damn toxic. Ooh. Okay. Yeah. Sounds like there's some controversial stuff regarding this guy. Okay. So I'll approach with caution. Chaz's Dungeon. Has anyone seen the 30th anniversary edition of Night of the Living Dead? Oh man. Yeah, I own the VHS tape of that, the 30th anniversary edition. Talk about a disaster. Oh my god. That is terrible. Yeah, I don't imagine many people have seen that, or I don't know, maybe they have. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, yeah, I think it was, let's see, 30th anniversary, so it would have been in the 90s. The producer of Night of the Living Dead, I believe his name was John Russo. he decided to go back to George Romero's classic Night of the Living Dead. And because Night of the Living Dead, there was a problem with the copyright, Night of the Living Dead is actually in the public domain. So pretty much anybody can do anything they want with it. You know, people have colorized it, people have, you know, done comedic versions of it, redubs of it, and it's all legal. You can do whatever you want with that movie. John Russo decided to go back, shoot additional scenes 30 years later, and cut them into the movie to try and make it, you know, more modern. And everything he added is just, it's so unnecessary. It adds nothing. It's poorly shot. It's poorly acted. It's poorly written. Talk about taking a classic movie, a classic, you know, of claustrophobia, and of innovative low-budget filmmaking, and of clever, you know, use of limited resources. Talk about just taking that and crapping all over it. He turns it into just one of the most inept things you could ever imagine. So I think the movie, the 30th anniversary edition, is sort of fascinating for that reason, just as an example of how much you can muck up a classic film when you mess with it too much. But oh my god, yeah, it has to be seen to be believed. So if you can get a hold of it, it's I don't know, if you're a fan of the original movie, you might not finish it in one sitting. I certainly didn't, but yeah, it does hold a certain kind of fascination. It's something else. Oh, Volstix, I love Living in Oblivion. Hey, that's great. Okay. I was worried Tom DeSillo, yeah, didn't have as much recognition as this, but yeah, I'm glad people, yeah, are recognizing some of those titles. That there is a fan base out there. I'm glad to see it. I thought I was the only one. I never hear Tom DeSillo's name mentioned, like, hardly ever, and I love his movies so much. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. I had the displeasure of watching that version first, the 30th anniversary edition of Night of the Living Dead. I knew something was off when the film began. I was a bit disturbed by how high quality the audio and visuals were, until I realized that the scenes were added in 1999. They replaced the music with a MIDI piano soundtrack. Yeah, just, oh god. Every choice they made, oh my god, was so poorly thought out. Yeah, that thing was just a disaster. Just a disaster. Thank goodness nobody remembers it. It's still the original that is considered the classic. Although I will say, I do think Tom Savini's remake, which I think was in the early 90s, Tom Savini did, he directed a remake of Night of the Living Dead. I actually think that one's sort of underrated. I actually do like Tom Savini's remake. As far as any of like the reinterpretations or the redone versions of Night of the Living Dead, I think that is the most successful, the Tom Savini remake. If any redone version of Night of the Living Dead is worth watching, I think it's that one. Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead. You don't have to see 30th anniversary edition unless it's out of some kind of morbid curiosity. But yeah, if you want to see a reinterpretation, watch the Tom Savini one. I think that one's actually got some interesting stuff. Oh gosh, Jordan. If we're noting down television shows, a short-lived UK Channel 4 series called Utopia, which has been, suggested to me again and again, is about as good as it gets. Camera work as stylistic as Boyle, art style as strong as Warhol. Yeah, that Utopia comes up. It has come up several times. Quite a few people have recommended that one to me. And I've written it down several times, but I'm going to write it down again just to make sure I get to it one of these days. But yeah, I hear great things about that one, and I will have to try to see it one of these days. But yeah, it's written down. My eye is out for it. I will try to see it. Oh, anyway, gotta go. Watch the VOD later. All right, see you later, Jordan. Have a good one. Zach Hayes. Boardwalk Empire is a slow burn, but worth it for the acting. Has the chick from Trainspotting as well. Talking about Kelly MacDonald? If so, I love Kelly Macdonald. She's a great actress. Feel like I don't see her in enough movies. If you like history or stuff about the outlaw of alcohol, prohibition, among other things. Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I know, like, Martin Scorsese, didn't he direct, like, the pilot, or he's like an executive producer, something like that? It's got Michael Shannon, so I mean, how could that not be worth watching? Michael Shannon, I mean, he's never not compelling. I'll have to try and make sure. I look into it. It's written down though. It's written down, so I will watch it. Chaz's Dungeon. Red Turtle is my favorite film of 2017. I could see why. Red Turtle's pretty damn good. And I love animation. Yeah, animation just has a simplicity, a beauty, and just like a pure emotional quality that even though I love live action filmmaking, and I want to be a filmmaker and I want to make live action movies, yeah, there's a simplicity and a poetry and a perfection to animation that, yeah, I don't think live action will ever match. I don't even want to make animated movies because I don't imagine I could make something that perfect as like The Red Turtle or Ponyo or Coraline or the Disney Alice in Wonderland, stuff like that. It's just like, oh my God, it's so perfect and so beautiful and so wonderful. Yeah, Red Turtle is great. Absolutely great. Oh, and Jack, more love for Utopia. Utopia is amazing, a masterpiece of television. And Chaz's Dungeon, yep. Absolute confirmation from me on this. Red Turtle is one of those rare, near-perfect films that it is, yeah. Dialogue-free, but just every image is so carefully chosen and tells the story so clearly and hits you, yeah, on such a pure emotional level. It's flabbergasting. God, I love that movie. It needs to be seen. Everybody write that movie down if you haven't seen it. The Red Turtle. Check it out. See it. Please see it. Let's see. Okay. Hey, Volstix. Glad you liked it, Henry. Oh, okay, yeah, talking about best offer. I love Quills too, yeah. Yep, you're right, Henry. Best offer it is. All right. Great Twist 2. I also really like The Life and Death of Peter Sellers. Oh, man. That has been a movie I have been like wanting to see for like more than a decade, but I've never gotten around to. I need to write that one down too. The Life and Death of Peter Sellers. I can't believe, yeah, I still haven't seen it. As long as I've been wanting to see it, I still haven't. Life and Death of Peter Sellers. Okay. It's written down. I will try to finally knock that one off the bucket list. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. A film I don't understand the love for is Nightcrawler. I didn't find the film tense. The performances were great, although I got a sense of cheesy 2000 Hollywood in the film. Interesting. Yeah, I disagree with you there. I thought Nightcrawler was pretty good. I didn't really get it the first time I saw it, but watching it the second time, I actually, yeah, found myself being pretty unnerved by it. And I think also a component of that was the fact that I saw the Billy Wilder film Ace in the Hole, which is like I view as like the mid-20th century version of Nightcrawler, an examination of, yeah, the questionable morals of the media and the direction that we're going, as far as of media and pop culture. I saw that film, which, it stars Kirk Douglas and, is about a newspaper man that kind of manipulates this tragedy to further his own career. Really good, really fascinating. Hasn't really dated. Is still, just as interesting viewed today as it was, back in the 50s, I think it was, that it was released. Like Billy Wilder, yeah, his movies really don't date. He's an extraordinary filmmaker. So I saw that, and then I saw Nightcrawler for the second time, and I was like, wow, these are really interesting companion pieces. Like, I saw them very close in succession, and it was really interesting to me to view Nightcrawler, like, in the context of being, like, this development, or, like, this companion piece to Ace in the Hole. Like, that's where we were then, this is where we are now. And kind of, like, examining the differences in the characters, like Kirk Douglas in Ace in the Hole, he's kind of supposed to represent where media was at that time, you know. He's kind of like, he's kind of driven by ambition and ego, but he also does have this moral compass. He questions whether or not what he's doing is right, and ultimately, you know, he has to face the consequences for what he's done. You know, there is kind of a thing steering it back in the right direction. There is kind of like this moral judgment that runs through the film. Whereas in Nightcrawler, basically everything's flipped around on its head. That character has no remorse. He has no moral quandaries or ambiguities. It's just like, this is, he basically sets out, I'm going to be the best, you know, news cameraman. I'm going to be the best Nightcrawler I can be. And the more he crosses those moral boundaries, the more he goes into this, you know, this ambiguous area, the more, yeah, he just kind of lets go of all of his morals and all of his, you know, his reluctance, the more successful he becomes. And so it just becomes a thing where, like, okay, there are no limits. Like, the further you go, the more you get rewarded. And everything's been turned on its head, and right is wrong and wrong is right. And we reward people for being morally bankrupt now. That's where we are at this point. And it becomes a thing, like, where at the end of Nightcrawler, I was really disturbed and really wondering, like, okay, if Ace in the Hole represents where we were, like, in the middle of the 20th century, Nightcrawler represents where we are at the beginning of the 21st century. Like, in another 50 years, where are we going to be? Like, if Kirk Douglas represents, you know, the person who knows the difference between right and wrong and who is questioning the decisions he's making, and he represented where we were then. Now we have the Jake Gyllenhaal character who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong, and who has absolutely, you know, no problem, will go as far as he possibly can and gets rewarded for it. Where are we going to be in 50 more years? Like, what further lines do we have to cross? Like, in 50 years, are we going to have, like, another film that is going to examine, like, how the internet has changed things? Because before it was newspapers, now it's television. What about the internet? There has to be, like, more area to explore there, even more ambiguities and more moral questions to ask in the context of our society right now and the direction we're going. So I found it really fascinating for that reason. And yeah, just kind of acting as this metaphor, you know, this character, the Jake Gyllenhaal character, that is meant to be like the representation of who we are at this point, you know, in terms of the media and pop culture. And I find it kind of chilling and fascinating for that reason, that he plays a monster, but he plays a monster that we have created. That's the scary thing about it. And that's the thing that I think is really well done about that movie. So I think it's worth going back to. I think it's worth giving another chance. Oh, Brian Smith, you're describing how I watch movies too, Henry, purely on a gut level, as you say. I kind of got a little heady just a second ago, a little intellectual with Nightcrawler, but that was a movie that did really make me think, and it stayed with me for a long time, and I think demands that you think about those kinds of things. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, I do just kind of, when I watch a movie, it's all about, okay, I want to feel something. I want this movie to stir me. I want it to engage me. I want it to make me feel something, anything, whether it's good or bad, whether it makes me laugh or cry or makes me feel terror or sympathy or compassion, anything. I want an emotional reaction. I want the movie to be doing something to me. I want to have a reaction. So that's my first demand of any movie that I watch, whether it's, it's just pure entertainment, or if it's something more emotional, or if it is something intellectual. I need that emotional response. I need the movie to be doing that, doing something emotional to me first and foremost. And then I kind of build from there. I watch the movie again and again. Maybe I formulate, a hypothesis or an interpretation or something. Maybe I don't. But the thing that makes me excited about movies, the thing that I love about movies, and the thing that keeps me coming back again and again to certain movies is that, I guess you could say, the frisson, the thing that stirs me, that moves me, that inspires some kind of emotional or intellectual, just some kind of reaction. I can't just sit there passively and not be reacting to something. I need the movie to be, eliciting a response, any kind of response from me. Back to Room 237. Josso. Room 237 is more about conspiracy theorists, but I still think there is heavy hidden stuff in The Shining, though. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. Kubrick was a genius. He was obsessive and he was compulsive. And I think, he did spend a lot of time really crafting his films and thinking about things, and working on them for a very long time. But I don't know. I haven't really heard like a crazy conspiracy theory like that it's about like the moon landing being faked, or that it's about the oppression of Native Americans, or gosh, what are some of the other theories about that movie? I've never really heard one that I thought like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think definitely, Kubrick was definitely doing something like that. Everything that I've heard, it seems kind of like people reading into it, more than something that is coming out of the film organically, to me at least. Maybe that's just me. I tend not to really overthink films. Oh gosh. Some more Nightcrawler thoughts. Jack. Talking about responding to Chaz's dungeon. Those were my thoughts on Nightcrawler as well. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was the only brilliant thing in it. Ouch. In Chaz's dungeon, the film wasn't tense at all, in my opinion. I did find it tense. I certainly did find it tense. I did find myself getting invested in that question of like, how far is this guy going to be allowed to go? Like, how many boundaries is he going to be allowed to step over? And the way the film, just keeps going and going and going. I did find that fascinating, and I found that tense. So, I have to disagree on that. I found the film to be effective. I did. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Jack, are the 2001 A Space Odyssey novels worth reading? 2001 is my favorite film of all time. I would say absolutely. I agree with you. 2001 is also one of my favorite movies. And I have to say, Arthur C. Clarke is one of my all-time favorite novelists. All of his work. I obsessively devoured Arthur C. Clarke novels when I was in high school, and he has remained one of my all-time favorite authors. And I would say the 2001 book is just as brilliant as the movie, but it's very much its own thing. Like, Stanley Kubrick took the movie, which was a collaboration between himself and Arthur C. Clarke, and he went distinctly in his own direction with it. Arthur C. Clarke took the same thing and went distinctly in his own direction with it, kind of in a different way. But I think they're both equally brilliant in their respective their respective artistic formats. The written word and the filmed image. Each of them are equally visionary and equally brilliant masterpieces. In their own ways. So I would absolutely say those books are worth reading. Any Arthur C. Clarke novel is worth reading. 2001, Rendezvous with Rama, Childhood's End, The City and the Stars. They're incredible books. Incredible books. Let's see. Oh, we're talking about Boardwalk Empire here. Michael Shannon as Van Alden is honestly one of the best characters I've ever seen. Uptight and paranoid. I'm guessing that is Boardwalk Empire. I've never seen it, so I don't know Van Alden. I don't know that character. I'm guessing that's Boardwalk Empire. But Shannon's always great. I've seen movies that Michael Shannon was in that weren't very good, but he's always been great in them. He, to me, no matter what he's in, he's always a highlight. Like that movie, what was it called? The Iceman, which I think was based on a true story. That I found to be a really boring, dull movie, but you know, he was great in it. Unfortunately, he wasn't given very much to do, but he was still really acting his ass off. It's just too bad the movie couldn't really find a real story or a real direction or a purpose that it was driving to. It was just kind of like, you know, whatever. But you know, still Michael Shannon, you know, is delivering the goods, doing the best he can do, even in kind of a lackluster film. So yeah, I don't think he's ever phoning it in. He's always there. He's always fascinating to watch. Oh, and Chaz's Dungeon. What's your personal favorite episode of the latest season of Twin Peaks? Part 8 or 16 for me? Yeah, God, that's a tough question. Part 8 was good. Part 8 was pretty great. That maybe has made the most lasting impression on me. But also the last one, Part 18, I thought was pretty fascinating too. A huge risk, yeah, going in the direction that Lynch went with that one. And yeah, certainly just watching it for the first time, yeah, and wondering, like, where are we going? Where are we going to end up? Like, where are we? It was confusing and perplexing and frustrating, and yeah, also sort of exciting because it was so unlike anything I had ever experienced before. So I don't know, yeah, maybe either Part 8 or Part 18 I think they made the strongest impression on me. It's a fascinating experience, really something else, that last season of Twin Peaks, which we've been talking about the past few months, but yeah, really went into last week, especially our takeaways from the series. Oh, Jack, have you seen The Triplets of Belleville? That is an animated masterpiece. I saw that one not too long ago. Someone suggested that to me. I forget who it was, but I wrote it down somewhere around here. It was before I had like my organized list. But yeah, I did see that one. That was a great one. Yeah, I loved that one. I wish I could remember the animator's name. I think it's Sylvain something? Chaumet? Something like that. He also did another animated masterpiece called The Illusionist, which is based on an unfilmed Jacques Tati script. And Jacques Tati is one of the great visionaries, one of the great comedic geniuses of cinema. I love Jacques Tati. His movie Playtime is one of my all-time favorites, probably like in my top 10. If I were to make a top 10, like Playtime would probably be on that list. And yeah, he did. There was a script that Tati wrote that he never filmed called The Illusionist that that director turned into an animated film that was so beautiful. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember loving it. And yeah, Triplets of Belleville was, I think, the film he did before that one, and I finally got around to seeing that one. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, strange and surreal. Almost no spoken dialogue from what I can remember, other than like a couple songs. All visual, creates a fascinating world, wonderful characters. Yeah, that's a great one too. Yeah. Let's see. Volstix. So cool to hear you speak so highly of animation, Henry. I love those early Fleischer Brothers cartoons. Check out Bimbo's Initiation and Winsor McKay's early forays. He was an innovator. Huh. Yeah, I don't know too much about like these early like animation. Fleischer Brothers. Okay, I know I've heard those names, or that, yeah, the Fleischer Brothers. Bimbo's Initiation. I'll look into that one. Initiation and Windsor McKay. I'll have to look into that too. Windsor McKay. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. I do agree that Mad Max Thunderdome is an underrated film. I honestly prefer that one over Mad Max 2. Yeah, Mad Max 2 is, it's a pretty simple, straightforward idea. You know, basically the whole film is just a build-up to a chase. Thunderdome, actually, it takes more time to develop characters, to develop a world, to kind of really layer in a setting, and the chase is just kind of the climax of this story that's been building all these threads and going in all these interesting directions. Mad Max 2 is pretty straightforward, just like set up, build up, and payoff. Big chase, big spectacular chase. Yeah, Thunderdome actually goes in many more complicated, story-driven, character-driven, interesting directions. I think it is a very underrated one. It tends to be viewed as the worst. I agree. It might be the best of the original three. As good as Road Warrior is, I think Thunderdome's got its strengths, its definite strengths. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. I do still need to talk about Trainspotting, so I should probably get to that at some point. Let's see. Kind of skipping over some of this stuff, so I apologize. Oh wow, Movies for Life. Hey Henry, literally just got back from watching Mother. Loved it. Hey, I'm glad to hear that. You must be in kind of, I know I was, you must be in kind of a fragile state after experiencing that film. It kind of takes you and shakes you. At least that was my experience with it. I don't know how you're feeling about it, but yeah, it's quite a trip. Chaz's Dungeon. Part 8 was Twin Peaks for the first 10 minutes. Then the episode was disrupted by a hijack from another dimension. That is a good interpretation. I like that. There were moments in that episode, where I was feeling like I was seeing some kind of otherworldly transmission from another place. That is the fascinating thing about it. Whoops, I lost some stuff. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Movies for Life. Speaking of Nightcrawler, Network was also a great movie on the media and the mindset they have. I cannot believe I forgot about Network. It has been so long since I've seen that movie. I need to revisit that movie. Network. I can't believe I forgot about that one. Thank you. Let's see. Oh man, Shubham Nauni. What about the emotional response from the film Mobius? That's an extreme one. Yeah, that's the director on that one was Kim Ki-duk, a Korean filmmaker. Yeah, he makes some interesting work. Certainly some very interesting work. He's done some great films though. I was a really big fan of Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring. I thought that was a very contemplative, spiritual film. 3 Iron I liked very much. The Isle, very dark, very harsh, but also I think a very deeply emotional film too. Mobius, that goes in some pretty extreme directions. If I can issue some minor spoilers, I think that's the only movie I've ever seen that opens with a castration, and that really lets you know the kind of ride you're in for on that movie. And the focus on it. There's no dialogue. It's all just played with looks and intensity and physical actions. It's really something else. Yeah, I was kind of I was not quite sure how to take that movie. It's definitely, yeah, in direction, in acting, it's one of those movies kind of like hard candy. You might not enjoy it, but you do have to really respect the commitment from the actors and the skill of the direction. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. It might have been a little bit too much for me. I don't know. Not like I thought. Not like I thought it was too far, or that I don't know. Just the outrageousness of it, how the extreme directions it goes in. I wasn't quite sure that it really worked for me dramatically, but yeah, it is a movie that takes some tremendous risks, and I admire it for that, and it does stick in my memory as really unlike anything else I've seen, and I do really respect the work of Kim Ki-duk, but yeah, I'm not too sure about Mobius. I might go back and rewatch it, I'm not sure, but yeah, it didn't entirely work for me, but it is certainly a very extreme and very memorable film. Let's see. Josso 1, gotta love Arthur C. Clarke. Not a fan of Isaac Asimov, though. Not enough description. Interesting. I've actually never read Isaac Asimov. I need to get into some of his stuff. Interesting, though. I love Arthur C. Clarke. I love science fiction, and I think as far as written science fiction goes, Arthur C. Clarke is maybe the best I've ever read. But yeah, my exposure is limited. Yeah, I haven't read Isaac Asimov. I haven't read like H.G. Wells, a few others like that. But I do love Arthur C. Clarke. He was he made a huge impact on me as a teenager. I think is really is part of the reason why I fell in love with science fiction as a genre. It was 2001: A Space Odyssey, the film, and yeah, his works, his novels, that really early on developed in me a love for science and science fiction. Yeah, and just how much Clarke grounded his work in speculation, in things that science that was being developed and explored, like in the times when he was writing his stories, and he'd use that as a springboard for his imagination and to build on it and to create these fantastic worlds and fantastic stories, but grounded in just enough real science to make you think like, you know, that could be possible. As crazy as it seems, maybe it is possible. That was always the thing I loved about his work. Oh, okay. Talking about when you mentioned Michael Shannon earlier. Okay, yeah, it's Boardwalk Empire. All right. Think like it's like his character in Bug almost, which is another great Michael Shannon movie. Great Michael Shannon performance. Yeah, so much paranoia in that movie. That's the great thing about it. Claustrophobia, paranoia. Yeah, that Bug is a great one. Bug is a really good one. Oh, okay, Josso. You liked The Iceman. Okay, Iceman was so good. But probably because I've seen the documentaries. Oh, and he played that character so correctly. Interesting. Okay. Interesting perspective. Yeah, I knew nothing about, the guy that the movie was inspired by. So, yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it is kind of one of those ones you need more of a familiarity with the subject to really appreciate it. Okay, fair enough. Oh, Jack again. What about the sequel novels to 2001? They are what I really wanted to know about. I think, actually, all of those are worth reading as well. The filmed sequel to 2001, 2010, The Year We Make Contact. Not a terrible movie, but not an especially good movie either. The book, however, I thought was excellent. I remember loving 2010. What was the third one? I think it was 2061, something like that. And then the last one, the fourth one, 3001. I remember loving the entire series, every single one. Clarke kind of just tried to push it further and further and imagine, more and more spectacular futures for humankind. I remember, especially by the time you got to 3001, He really kind of expanded it and got pretty big in scope. But he was such a visionary writer that yeah, he was able to ground it all in this sense of being, you know, not sheer fantasy, but as being something that is possible. Like in 1,000 years, we could very well be in this place. So yeah, I think all of those novels, all 4 of them, are definitely worth reading. I remember really loving and really being struck by the vision of every single one. Oh, Volstix, Rendezvous with Rama is one of my favorite sci-fi novels. Hey, all right. And Shannon in Boardwalk Empire is absolutely amazing. Such a conflicted character. The man delivered to hell by his desire to appear morally pure. Interesting. Oh, and Jack, Part 8, Twin Peaks, is one of my favorite things Lynch has ever done. It's something else. Yeah, there are images in Episode 8 that I find myself still thinking about. Like the image of the atom bomb, that'll pop into my head every now and again, and I'll just think, what a chilling image that was. What an incredible sequence. Oh, Sylvain Chomet. Okay, thank you, Volstix. Sylvain Chomet. Triplets of Belleville is so amazing. And Jack, haven't seen The Illusionist yet, unfortunately. It's worth a look. It is really worth a look. Whoops. Lost my place again. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. Okay, when I talk about Trainspotting 2, tap your nose when you're finished. Okay, I'll let you know when, if you haven't seen Trainspotting 2, I'm going to try not to spoil it. I'll try not to spoil anything, but yeah, if you don't want to hear anything, when I do go into it, yeah, I'll be sure to do the old finger on the nose. Let's see. Oh, Volstix. Winsor McKay did the newspaper comic strip Little Nemo, and his animation character was Gertie the dinosaur. There's vids on YouTube. He had a live show where he's interacting on stage with the dinosaur. Okay, I kind of know some of that stuff. Gertie the dinosaur, I might have seen something on that. Okay. Oh, and the Fleischer brothers are best known for Betty Boop and maybe the first color Superman cartoon. Okay, so I've seen a few of these things. All right. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. I'm looking forward to seeing Good Time. Yeah, I have been hearing great things about Good Time. Those directors, the Safdie brothers, I think their names are. I just watched their Criterion video. They were just featured on the Criterion Collection channel doing a closet video where they get to go into the Blu-ray closet and get to pick out whatever movies they want to take home with them. I just watched the video featuring the 2 of them. But yeah, I don't think it's their first movie. I think it's their second movie, Heaven Knows What. That's been one I've been seeing on Netflix, which I'm actually going to write it down to make sure I watch it. Heaven Knows What. I've been hearing good things about that one. I want to see that one, so I'm going to make sure I watch that one. And yeah, Good Time. Their newest one with Robert Pattinson, I have been hearing is crazy and excellent. I really want to see it. I wish I had a better theater locally that would play stuff like that, but unfortunately I don't. I'm going to have to wait to see that one, sadly. But I will be moving up to Portland in the next couple months, so that will hopefully give me the opportunity to see more interesting films like that. And yeah, from the way I've been able to gauge your particular taste in movies, Chaz's Dungeon, I have a feeling you might really enjoy Mother. It's a toss-up. It's hard to say, yeah, exactly what anybody's reaction to that movie will be, but I have a feeling it's probably going to be your kind of thing. Oh. Okay, Chaz's Dungeon. I likely won't see Mother until its DVD release, which I believe will take away from the effect. That is a good one to see in theaters, because the sound design is very immersive. That was the word I was looking for before when I was talking about Bad Batch. Immersive. That's what I was grasping for. Took me a while. It was a delayed reaction, but I finally remembered the word. Immersive. Yeah, that's the great thing about the theatrical experience, and especially when you get a really good sound design on a film and a really good sound system in a theater. That adds so much to the immersion that you feel in a movie and how much it draws you in. Mother is definitely one of those experiences where the sound is so carefully designed. And even though my local theater is not so good, they have a few screening rooms where they have a really good sound system set up. And I was lucky enough to see Mother in one of the theaters with a really good sound setup. So yeah, that added a lot to the effect. Especially, or like with a film like The Bad Batch, where sound is an essential component to it. And seeing it in the theater with a great sound system, being enveloped by the images, it adds so much to the immersiveness of it. So if you get the chance, I would recommend seeing Mother in a theater to really be immersed in it. Let's see. Okay, Chaz's Dungeon again. The most surreal film I've seen is the Shea St. John Triggers compilation. Nothing makes sense, although the experience you'll have is fascinating, trippy, annoying, and ill. Huh. I've never heard of this. Try and write that down. The Shea St. John Triggers compilation. Interesting. I will have to look into that, find out what that is. Oh, and Zach Hayes. Have you seen Belladonna of Sadness? I'm very curious about it. I heard it's a very trippy animated film. I think it's from the 70s. Yeah, I've heard that one, or I've read like little bits and pieces about it here and there. I don't know a lot about it though. But yeah, I've heard that from what I've been able to gather, yeah, it's like this. It's this trippy, psychedelic animated film. I think it's Japanese, maybe? Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I think it's from the 70s, and was it considered lost, or it was just, it hadn't been released in ages and was recently rediscovered? Something like that? I'm not sure, though. But yeah, I've been hearing weird things about it, and I've been wanting to check it out. But I've written it down, so if I get the chance to see it, I will make sure I do that. But yeah, I do not know hardly anything about it, like if there's a story or what. Let's see. Oh, is this the Godard film? Has anyone heard of Goodbye to Language? I haven't seen the film yet. I need to be in the best mood for that film. If it's the Godard film you're talking about, Goodbye to Language, I did see that one. I saw that one on Netflix. Didn't really like it. But from what I understand, seeing it in 2D, which I did, is not the same experience as seeing it in 3D. My brother saw it in 3D in a theater, and he was saying, like, wow, there was some really cool stuff in there. The way Godard used the 3D was really like nothing I've ever seen before. So I imagine a lot of the experience of that film is lost when you just watch it in 2D. A lot of the effects that Godard does, like filming with two cameras simultaneously, you know, to get the 3D effect, but then also having them like pan in different directions and kind of splitting your vision and layering images on top of each other. A lot of that just doesn't seem to make any sense when you see it in 2D. It's really, it's meant to be viewed in 3D. So I've never experienced it in 3D, so I can't say I've really gotten the full experience of it. So I don't know. Godard is a challenging one, certainly. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon again. Jan Svankmeyer's films are very difficult to find, with the exception of Alice. Yeah, some of his shorts can be viewed on YouTube, I recall. They might have been taken down, but I remember I've seen a couple of his shorts on YouTube. And yeah, he is so strange and trippy and dark and kind of disturbing, but also sort of charming. Yeah, his work is fascinating, very fascinating. But yeah, gosh, I never got the chance to see all of Alice. I started it, and for some reason I couldn't finish it. But I need to try and see that one again, or actually finish it. Because yeah, I love the Alice in Wonderland story. That's one of my favorite books of all time. And anything based on, inspired by Alice in Wonderland, I'm game for it. I'm all in. I am all into that. So I need to try and find it. Oh. Okay, Chaz's Dungeon again. Alice is a film I like, although I found it to be quite tedious. Interesting. My favorite Svankmajer film so far is Food. I don't know if I've seen that one. I might have. I remember seeing one. It's like a clay man trapped in like a room, and like different pieces of his body kind of enter into the room and attach to him. I remember it being very strange and funny and surreal. Don't know about Food, though. I may have seen it. I can't remember. But I'll look into it, just in case. Oh, Movies for Life. Trainspotting is so heavily embedded in British pop culture. Very few films have resonated as strongly. It's on the same level as Hot Fuzz and 28 Days Later in terms of how iconic it is here. Yeah, I feel like T2 was going for the same thing of really trying to comment specifically on British society and pop culture and things that were, things that are very current to now, the same way the original was at its time. It's kind of like, an update, a companion piece. And I really liked it for that reason. Even as an American, not really understanding all of the frames of reference, there was enough in there that was universal to me that I was able to get really into it, into the comedy of it, the commentary of it, and the subversiveness of it. And I thought there was a lot more to it as well, which I'll get to in just a second. If possible, I do kind of want to get to the end of this chat here. I think I'm almost there. Almost there. Let's see. Oh, Volstix. I haven't seen T2. Will listen, though, because I read Porno, which is the Irvine Welsh? Sorry, I'm messing up on a simple name like that. I think it's Irvine Welsh, which I believe is the written follow-up to Trainspotting. Which T2 is loosely based on. Don't know how close it is to the novel. I do know it's a pretty damn loose adaptation of Trainspotting, though. Talking about the original. Yeah, I think they both are pretty loose, and they really go in their own directions. Let's see. Oh, Zach Hayes. Heard Good Time was awesome, and I watched that Criterion video as well. Yeah, it's a good one. I love those. I love watching film geeks geek out. It's always enjoyable for me. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. The Shea Saint John Triggers compilation is very difficult to find, although there's a channel that has released everything from the DVD online. Okay, interesting. I'll take a look at it. Let's see. Whoops. I keep getting jumped ahead in the chat, so I apologize if I'm missing anything. Let's see. Whoa, Mirror Saw. Did you know there will be a film adaptation for Neuromancer? It will be directed by Tim Miller. Is he the guy that did Deadpool? Yeah, Neuromancer. Yeah, that's William Gibson's first novel. That's a great book. One I read a long time ago, but I remember really liking. Arguably the first cyberpunk novel. But yeah, they have been trying for years and years and years to make a film adaptation of that book. So I don't know if it will actually happen. This could just be another attempt that goes nowhere, sort of like Dune. But, it might happen. Might happen. Yeah, I'm open to that idea. I think Neuromancer could potentially make for a great movie. It all just depends, on how it's done. So, we'll see. Oh, Movies for Life. Controversial opinion. Britain has the best filmmakers right now. Nolan, Greengrass, Edgar Wright, Danny Boyle, Steve McQueen, Ridley Scott, Sam Mendes, Duncan Jones, Guy Ritchie, Ben Wheatley, etc. Good point. A lot of good examples there. Yeah, certainly the two I'm talking about this week. Danny Boyle, Ben Wheatley, some great British films. So I think you make a good point there. I don't know which country, or what has the best filmmakers, but certainly a case could be made for Britain. I think you could also make a pretty good case right now for Korea, South Korea. Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho, Kim Ji-woon, the guy that did The Wailing, Lee Chang-dong, who did Secret Sunshine and Poetry. A lot of great filmmakers coming out of South Korea right now. So I don't know. That'd be an interesting discussion to have. I'd like to have a list in front of me. Zach Hayes. Has anyone seen The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears? It has popped up on my Amazon recommendations. That sounds familiar. I haven't seen it. I may have heard of it, though. That's not like... Is that the Asia Argento movie? Or am I... No, I'm thinking of another one. The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things. That's the Asia Argento movie. I don't know what Strange Color of Your Body's Tears is. I'm writing it down, though. Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. It's a new movie, right? Relatively new? I'll look into it. I'll check it out. Oh, Shea Saint, John Trigger's compilation is on eBay right now. If you're interested, I'd grab a copy as soon as possible, as they flee like flies. Okay. I'm surprised I've never heard of this. Oh, are we talking about William Gibson? Josso, I'd give my left foot for a film adaptation of the Hyperion Cantos. Volstix, the Sprawl trilogy is amazing. Also, would quite like to see a film adaptation of Gibson and Sterling's The Difference Engine. Such a great book. You know, I have to admit, Neuromancer is the only William Gibson novel I've read. I've read a lot of Arthur C. Clarke. I've only read one William Gibson. So he's one I need to familiarize myself with more. I do have... I think it's right here somewhere. Maybe not. Oh! Yeah, it's hiding under here. I do have this one. Count Zero. This is the only other William Gibson novel I own, and I haven't read it yet, but I need to. And then, yeah, tons of other stuff I need to read after that. Okay, and I should... Okay, and I should get into T2, since that's the other film on the list. But yeah, so T2, Trainspotting. The sequel, 20 years in the making. Not really 20 years, but the follow-up to the cult classic original Trainspotting, 20 years later, directed by, gets all the same basic people in there. Director Danny Boyle, the stars, Ewan McGregor, Ewan Bremner, Robert Carlyle, Johnny Lee Miller, and writer John Hodge. So yeah, basically the same team on there, all working on this thing, and revisiting these characters 20 years later. I'd heard, I like Danny Boyle. I'm a fan of his. Most every film of his I've seen, I've been pretty impressed by in one way or another. I like that he sort of balances like larger kind of studio work, like something like nothing he's really done has really been, I guess you could describe as a big studio movie. He's done stuff that feels like they're big studio movies, but when you really look at it, they're kind of like these low-budget films, or at least for what they are, they're pretty small. Like 28 Days Later was not a big movie. It was a really small movie, but it feels really big with what he was able to do with the resources he had. Or Sunshine, that was actually a pretty small film when you look at it. Steve Jobs even was a pretty small film when you really look at it. So I guess he hasn't really done any big studio stuff. But I guess maybe what I mean is the way he balances kind of like these high profile films, like something like Steve Jobs or or The Beach or things like that, with kind of these smaller, more experimental kind of movies like Trance. I really like, you know, how his versatility, how he tries different things with every kind of film, sort of like Ben Wheatley. And most every time I'm really impressed. I can't really think of many Danny Boyle movies that I just outright haven't liked. Maybe The Beach I didn't think was so good, or A Life Less Ordinary I didn't think was very good either, but most everything else I've been pretty impressed by. Shallow Grave, Trainspotting, the original, of course, I think is excellent. 28 Days Later, 127 Hours I thought was incredible. Steve Jobs I thought was really good. Trance I thought was really underrated. Millions is an excellent, underrated, like, heartwarming children's story. Gosh, what else has he done? Sunshine is really interesting. That one's been sort of like over the years really developing a cult following. Oh gosh, I know he's done other stuff too, and I'm embarrassed that I can't think of anything else. But yeah, T2 is his latest. Interesting idea, you know, of revisiting these characters in this world 20 years down the line. But I feel like he really had a reason for it. I feel like he really had some interesting questions he wanted to ask, and a new perspective to bring on this material now that he's gotten older, now that everyone else has gotten older, and a new way to tell the story. So, and I've been hearing mixed things about it. I've heard some people, you know, really loved it, and I've heard some people really hated it. I definitely fell on the positive side. I actually, not only did I like this movie, I was surprised how much I liked it, because it was unexpectedly emotionally resonant. I feel like in some strange way, this is like the most personal movie Danny Boyle has made. Like, it is really close to his actual feelings on getting older and aging and confronting the past and maturing through life and the lessons that life teaches you. I wouldn't expect, you know, a Trainspotting sequel to be a place for him to really delve into these personal questions and musings along with writer John Hodge. But I feel like that's really what he did with this movie, and I found myself very, very moved by it. First off, you know, it, I think, is an excellent companion to the first Trainspotting. It's got an incredible amount of energy, an incredible amount of visceral visual creativity and originality. Every scene, every sequence, is so stylish and so unconventional. Every single scene, Boyle's got like some kind of brilliant visual idea behind it, some way that he's doing it, and using the maneuverability and the versatility of digital to really give each film, or to really give each scene, you know, its energy, and some kind of visual flair and creativity. He's unbelievably brilliant when it comes to that kind of stuff, of rendering each scene in some kind of interesting way and incorporating so many sources, you know, and so many unconventional, interesting angles, or like subjective interpretations and cutaways and layers. He's very influenced by Nicholas Roeg in that sense, in trying to use cinematography and editing to comment upon scenes in oblique and symbolic ways. I love all of that. He really hasn't lost any of that creativity or that visual flair. If anything, he's enhanced it. He's refined it. This whole movie is just such a thrilling visual journey. And also, it really takes the characters in interesting new directions, I thought. It's got the same humor. It's got the same, you know, subversiveness and comment, the same running commentary, cynical running commentary on current society and pop culture. It's simultaneously, you know, the characters are repelled by pop culture, but also they're fascinated by it and immersed in it, and they have all these horrible, cynical things to say, but at the same time they're just absorbed in pop culture and they can't separate themselves from it. And also the way it examines nostalgia, the way it examines the past, the way it incorporates the original movie and comments upon it in really innovative ways. I love the way all of that was done. It wasn't just a simple thing of like, we occasionally get clips from the first movie. The way it actually organically is incorporated in scenes, the way Boyle renders the past as like a physical presence in certain scenes. It's so tangible. It's actually right there in front of the characters. I thought was so interesting and so cool. But basically, you know, like the original movie, there isn't much of a plot to this film. It's just kind of like the first Trainspotting. It's just, let's take these characters, let's take the setting and these lives. I think it's Edinburgh in Scotland. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly. But let's just take this setting and these characters and let's just spend some time with them. You know, let's just dive into their lives for a set period of time. In the original, you know, it was just kind of like a series of scenes, you know, as they score drugs, they get high, they occupy time, they try to fight off boredom, and eventually it kind of develops into a sort of narrative where they're trying to set up this heroin deal and try to score a bunch of cash. T2 is kind of the same way. Not really much of a story, just kind of like, let's see where these characters are, let's see kind of where they are in their lives, how they're dealing, you know, with the past and with the present and the idea of a future, which they've never had before. The original film, it's like, it's all about being in the moment. It's all about the reckless abandon of youth and like, I'm here, I have no prospects for the future, I'm a drug addict, I don't have a future, I'm living in the moment. I'm abandoning the idea of a future. It's all just about the right here, right now. And now in T2, it's kind of like these characters are 20 years older, and it's like, oh shit, I'm still here. I'm still alive. And now I have to cope with all the mistakes I've made in the past and my short-sightedness as a young man, and now trying to figure out what do I do with the idea of having a future. I thought that was all so interesting, and each character deals with it in different ways. And it really does try to get deep and resonant and personal, I thought. And again, yeah, it's just kind of a loose collection of scenes as they just try to figure out what they're going to do with their lives, how they confront the past. It eventually sort of develops into a narrative with the Robert Carlyle character coming back. And spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the first Trainspotting. There is at the end of the first movie, because it's so important to the storyline of this movie. At the end of the first movie, Ewan McGregor's character does run off with all of the money that they make with the heroin deal, and now he's come back. I think did somebody say Edinburgh? I thought I saw that, maybe not. Is it Edinburgh? I hope I'm getting that right. But Ewan McGregor has come back to Edinburgh, and Robert Carlyle is kind of, everybody holds resentment against Ewan McGregor for having run off with the money, but Robert Carlyle, especially as the most volatile, violent character, is out for revenge, and so that sort of develops into the narrative thrust of this movie of him wanting to exact his revenge. But again, even Begbie, the Robert Carlyle character, is having to confront his past, is having to confront his mistakes. And all of them are just so ill-equipped for that, and struggling to figure out how they do this, how they move on with their lives, how they accept the past and move into the future. But I love the way it was done. I thought it was all very, very deeply felt, very emotional. Edinburgh. Edinburgh, that's how you say it. Okay, thank you, Movies for Life. Edinburgh. But yeah, and just a contemplation on maturity and aging and life and death, with some great performances. The whole cast, still is fantastic. They're all great actors. Getting to step back into these characters and take them into interesting new places, more mature kind of places. But especially the standout I thought was Robert Carlyle. He really, I think, delivers some of his finest work in this movie. Begbie's such a violent character, too, such an unlikable character in a lot of ways. I was surprised, like, how often I found myself really feeling for that character and really feeling for his disillusionment, or not his disillusionment, but for his isolation and for the way he's slowly realizing, you know, he's no longer the person he once thought he was. You know, he's now this old man who now no longer has a place in the world at all. The whole way Robert Carlyle, you know, kind of functions as an antagonist and is terrifying, you know, as this violent, unpredictable character, but also as this real human being as well that has real emotions and these things that he's just struggling to grapple with. I found myself very moved by that as well, and very moved by his performance. He's such a great actor, and yeah, the way he plays the character is just so perfect. And yeah, I thought also the movie, it's still got the humor. It's still hugely, enormously entertaining and outrageous and vulgar, and has some great sequences too, I thought. Poor Spud, Ewan Bremner. Just the most horrible things happened to him. He shat the bed in the original, and in this one, the first time we see him, he's trying to commit suicide that ends up getting botched in the most disgusting way, again involving bodily fluids. That is is a pretty great and memorable image that elicits a very visceral reaction. When you see that scene, it's just like, oh God, I can't believe I just saw that. And some other great sequences too that I think will, if this movie ends up kind of getting placed up alongside with the original as like a great contemporary classic, which I think it has the potential to be. I think it will have some sequences that will be, you know, like the original, those sequences that people really remember, like the overdose scene in the original Trainspotting, and the opening, like with Lust for Life, and the montage and the running and the energy. I think certainly with T2, like one of those scenes is the scene in, I think it's something very specific to England, but like that club for the Protestant group or something. They celebrate that event from the battle from 1690, I think it was, and they're supposed to be kind of like this extremist group or something like that. I'm not really sure. I don't have a frame of reference for that, but I do know it does develop into this musical number that I thought was great, and is one of the great scenes from T2. There were no more Catholics left. That was some brilliant writing and brilliant directing and brilliant acting. That was a great sequence, I thought. But yeah, just the whole thing, visually vibrant and so alive and so creative and so original. Just a relentless visual energy, just relentlessly entertaining and funny from beginning to end, and also, yeah, just emotionally resonant too. A really interesting contemplation on the act of getting older, of reflecting on youth and reflecting on the past, and coming to terms with the decisions that one has made, and coming to terms with the consequences and what that has led to in your life. Yeah, I was very moved by it in a way that I was not expecting. And I think T2 really stands alongside the original Trainspotting as an extraordinary, stylish, and incredibly memorable piece of work. Danny Boyle, I think, he's still got it. He hasn't lost any of his flair or any of his vitality. T2 I thought was an excellent movie, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. And now that I've kind of vomited out all of those thoughts and impressions, I'm going through the chat now to look at what we got here. Jack really liked T2. Glad to hear it. Oh, and Mirror Saw, getting both ends of the spectrum here. I hated T2 so much, I didn't finish watching it. Made it halfway through. Wow. I'm not sure why you felt that way. If you could, if you could share some of your thoughts. But I found it very engaging. Like right away, I was into it. Just right away from the opening, the clever way it kind of turns the first film on its head. The way the first Trainspotting opens with running and movement, and you're moving and moving and moving into an uncertain future. You don't know where you're going. You're young and you're on the move and you're living in the moment. And then this one opens again with running, but and again with Ewan McGregor running, but now he's on a treadmill and he's running and he's moving, but he's going nowhere and he doesn't know where he's going. And he falls down at the end of the scene. So it's just kind of like he's stumbling through life. He's stumbling through adulthood and maturity, trying to figure out what the hell he's doing. All of those things I thought were so interesting. It's such a clever, way of elaborating upon, commenting upon, developing the first movie. I really enjoyed it, really liked it. Right away, I was like, okay, I'm game for this. I really like what they're doing with it. Oh, okay, Josso. Oh, no. Okay, talking about Arrival. I'll get back to this if we can. Let's see. Okay, talking about Denis Villeneuve. I think somebody... Yeah, okay, we're mentioning Blade Runner and Dune. I'll get to this in just a second. I just want to see if there are any other T2 comments. Oh, Zach Hayes. I didn't hate T2. I just didn't like some of the direction for one of the characters, okay? Makes sense why. It was just sad for me to see, and I was on edge every time he popped up on screen. I think I have an idea of which character you're talking about. I'm not positive, though. Just shows how good the acting and directing is. I know the first one is hard to watch in parts, but I just enjoyed Trainspotting a little more. But a worthy sequel. Yeah, this one, I think T2 does give you some more mature themes to chew on. The original Trainspotting, it's such a youthful film, and it is all about the reckless abandon of youth. And so I think it's an easier film to enjoy in that sense, that it's just like, it is all about that, living in the moment, and just doing whatever it is you feel in the moment and not considering the consequences. And T2 is like the film that considers the consequences. So it's a bit heavier in that sense. It's like, oh God, I have to think about getting older and I have to think about the consequences that my decisions are leading to in the future. I don't want to think about that. It is kind of scary to think about. But that's what I found so interesting about it, is that Boyle and the writer John Hodge did seem to really be wanting to ask those questions from a personal standpoint. And I thought they did a great job of that. Let's see. Edinburgh. Am I getting that right? Edinburgh? So I think the the comments got deleted for some reason on the pronunciation. Yeah, Trainspotting takes place in Edinburgh, but ironically was filmed in Glasgow. I was gonna say Glasgow originally, but I was like, no, I don't think it's Glasgow. That's funny. Oh, some people say Edinburgh, some say Edinburgh. I most frequently hear Edinburgh, though, from the south. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that insider knowledge. Edinburgh. I feel more comfortable saying Edinburgh. That's the way it looks like it's spelled to me. So I might go with Edinburgh, if I can. Jack, Ewan McGregor killed it in T2. The Choose Life scene was fantastic. Yeah, an interesting elaboration or update, on that speech for the 21st century. Yeah. Again, I like the irony of it, that it's like he's a character that is simultaneously rejecting and embracing pop culture. He's disgusted by it, but at the same time, you see him in so many scenes, like using apps on the phone, like they do the face swap app with Johnny Lee Miller when they're partying and getting drunk. So it's like, it's kind of funny. Like he's so much a part of pop culture. Pop culture is so much a part of him and his life, but at the same time, he's disgusted by it and he wants to reject it, but he can't, I feel like the first movie was sort of about that in a way too. Or maybe in a different way. You know, because they were drug addicts, they were junkies in the first movie that had chosen to reject everything. And in the second movie, they aren't anymore. They've kind of moved, or at least Ewan McGregor has moved more into legitimate society. So I don't know, maybe it's a development on that in a sense. Now I'm thinking back to the original film, like they really were just kind of like living on the fringe in that one and seeing it from the outside. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's kind of like T2's a further development on that, in that sense, that now he's on the inside, he's still disgusted, but he can't get out now that he's a part of it. Yeah, that's kind of interesting to think. That hadn't occurred to me before. Oh, Zach Hayes, I like the singing along scene in T2. Yeah, I thought that was a great scene. I really liked that. Whoops, where'd we go? I keep losing my place in the chat, so I apologize if I'm missing stuff. Oh gosh. Abhimanyu, and I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. It was a perfect culmination after 25 years. The nostalgia, the beauty. It is of no existence without its predecessor, which it doesn't shy away from showing. Yes, yeah. The first Trainspotting film is definitely an organic part of Trainspotting 2. And I liked the way that the movie embraced that and said, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to do our own thing with this one. But at the same time, yeah, the first movie, I mean, it's in here inexorably. And we are going to acknowledge that. Yeah, the whole way, yeah, it approached its subject matter. Its identity as a sequel, I thought was so original and so clever. Yeah, again, like I said, the way they sort of reenact scenes from the first movie, or like you'll see scenes from the first movie like projected on walls in apartments, or projected on the wall almost like The Third Man or something, and you'll see it sort of reenacted and intercut. I really liked the way it was, like the past was a physical presence in the second film. I really enjoyed that. Boyle, I think, is really clever when it comes to visual ideas like that, and innovative direction. That's always the thing I found so fascinating about his work, is that he's bursting with creativity and ideas and visuals and shots and editing. He's so interesting for that reason. All of his films just have got so much in them. That's the thing I always find really exciting about his work every time I watch one of his movies. Jasso. First time I tried to watch T2, I got 10 minutes in, and I realized I wasn't in the right mood. Perhaps some uncomfortable truths are inevitable in T2. I think so. I think that is true. It is getting into some real shit, which I really enjoyed about it. That was one of the things I very much enjoyed about this movie, is that it's kind of like, hey, let's get a little heavier. Let's get more serious this time around. We're older. We're thinking about these things. Let's confront it. Let's examine it. Ryan Smith, right, I'm off to watch The Gift. Thanks for the recommendation here, Henry. My pleasure. Have a good one, Volstix. Oh, are you out of here? Well, have a good one if you are. Oh, Jasso. But Henry, Reading is pronounced Reading. Yeah, it's spelt reading, but pronounced Reading. Okay, good point. And Volstix, I say Edinburgh. Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm an outsider. I apologize. Let's see. Oh, Abhimanya. Again, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Just finished watching A Ghost Story, which according to me was a great, innovative, meditative movie. Really loved it. Your thoughts? Haven't seen it yet. I have. I've put it on my list. It's one I'm going to try and see when I can. And I will let you know when I do. I'm sure it's one I'll be featuring on a future episode of Videodrone when I do see it. But as of now, have not seen it. Saw a trailer for it. I try not to. I don't want to know. I want to know as little as possible about any movie when I go into it. So, yeah, I'm trying to avoid reading too much about that one. I want to go into. I like going into every movie, just fresh and blind and with no expectations, and just like, okay, whatever you're gonna do, let's see it. Movies for Life. Just Googled it. It's definitely Edinburgh. Also spelt Edinburgh. Edinburgh. Hope that clears things up a little bit. Thank you. Okay, I will say Edinburgh. You've broken me. I will say Edinburgh. Let's see. Oh, Fallsticks. I recommend the Acid House anthology film adapted from Welsh's short stories. Thrifty budget, but really creative. Haven't heard of that one, actually. The Acid House. Interesting. I did see that other adaptation of Welsh's work, Filth, the one starring James McAvoy. That was a pretty good one. Pretty funny. I enjoyed that one. McAvoy, great, of course, as always. Getting to play a really degenerate character. Those kinds of stories are always fascinating. So yeah, I liked Filth. Not as good, not as creative as something like Trainspotting, but still I thought a pretty good time if you like those kinds of stories. I mean, it's called Filth, so you should know what you're in for in that case. But yeah, I thought it was a nice run through the gutter, an entertaining run through the gutter. Let's see. Zach Hayes, I found What Happened to Big B at the end hilarious and rewarding. It made up for some of what I didn't care for as much. Well, for me. Big B. Are we talking about T2? Are we talking about Begbie? Yeah, it is nice how that story comes full circle. And it is kind of tragic, too, the way Begbie, he isn't really able to grow. Like, all of those other characters are sort of able to accept their mistakes and say, like, okay, I'm ready to move forward with my life now. And they kind of arrive at a place where, they have developed into better people. And Begbie is just incapable of doing that. He comes close. He has a few lucid moments where he's like, oh God, this is what I am. I have to confront this. And he's just like, no, I can't. I can't become anything better than what I am. And I have to accept that. And it's kind of tragic. I really felt for him. I really felt for Begbie at the end. Let's see. Okay, Volsticks, he did stick around. All right. I think Ryan Smith might have left, but that's okay. Hope he enjoys the gift. Chaz's Dungeon. Has anyone seen The Love Witch? Oh gosh, that's on my brother's Amazon Prime queue, and I have heard a lot about that one, and I really want to see it. Or like I've seen like different like GIFs and images on Tumblr. I'm seeing like images from that one constantly on Tumblr, and it is spooky, like how accurately they were able to make, because it came out last year, I think, The Love Witch, and it looks exactly like a film made in the 60s. Like, the first time I saw images of that movie posted on Tumblr, I was like, is this some kind of weird movie from the 60s that just recently got rediscovered? And I found out it came out last year, and I was amazed. Like, it is amazing how well they were able to recreate that 60s look and aesthetic. And I don't know much about the story, but I mean, just visually, that kind of had me hooked. I was like, I love the 60s. I love films from the 60s. So the idea of a film trying to pay homage to that and recapture that is very interesting to me. So I'm writing that one down. I'm going to make sure I watch it. I've been wanting to see it for a little while now. I need to finally do it. Let's see. Oh, Josso. I'm just going to continue my rural ways and pronounce it Edinburgh still. Like the Borough of Eden, right? Makes sense. Uh, oh, Jack, have you seen the trailer for The Killing of a Sacred Deer? As far as movie trailers go, that was a pretty damn fine trailer. I will check it out when this stream ends. Because, yeah, I love Yorgos Lanthimos, and I'm eagerly anticipating Killing of a Sacred Deer. So, I don't always like watching trailers. They can give away too much sometimes. But for, like, kind of more avant-garde stuff like that, they oftentimes have really interesting, weird trailers, too. So, I'll watch that once this stream is done. Oh, Zach Hayes, I was curious about Filth. Yeah, I think it's worth a look. It's not Trainspotting. It's not that level. But I do still think there's some good moments in it and some great performances in it. Who is that? God, great British actor. Eddie Marsan, I think is his name. He's really good in it too. God, every time I see him in something, he's just excellent. He was in Mike Leigh's Happy Go Lucky. He was great. This amazing Paddy Considine film called Tyrannosaur. He plays an abusive husband in that one. Oh my God. He is so just hateful in that movie and so good. Eddie Marsan is a terrific actor. And yeah, he gets to play a more comedic kind of role in Filth that I thought he did really well. And yeah, James McAvoy kind of playing a more comedic version of the Bad Lieutenant, I thought was really good too. Again, not Trainspotting, but still I think worth the watch. A fun one. Oh, Abhimanyu, I saw another brilliant movie, Cavalry. Have you seen it? No. Cavalry. Damn. All right, another one going on the list. Cavalry. Not familiar with that one. I will look it up. Oh, Volsticks. Filth was on Film 4 last night. Watched it again. Leaves a lot of the more grotesque parts of the book out, though. There is some effed up shit in that novel. I can imagine. I've never read it, but yeah, I can imagine. Sometimes you can get away with stuff in books that you unfortunately still to this day you can't really get away with in movies, unfortunately. You know, I don't know, I guess there's just some things you have to ask actors, you know, not so much to actually do them, but, you know, to simulate them. So I've never read the book, so I don't know exactly what is in there, but, you know, yeah, you got to admit, with the rating system, with mainstream cinema, yeah, there's only so much you can get away with, and yeah, I mean, I guess I just think of it as being, like, in the position of a director. Like, how much are you willing to ask your actors to go through to portray on screen? Sometimes, yeah, that can be a question you have to ask. That has to be a boundary you have to draw. I mean, yeah, it can be a touchy subject sometimes, you know, asking actors to do certain things in movies. Oh, Jack, Filth is great. McAvoy was fantastic in it. Yeah, I am really realizing, I think after I saw Split, I really started realizing, holy shit, James McAvoy is a great actor. He really is. He's sort of like a Nicolas Cage sort of performer, where he really is after, you know, extreme characters, extreme material, and he'll just go for it. He'll just jump into it and hold nothing back. And that's really exciting to see in a performer. I've really been developing more of an appreciation for James McAvoy recently. And I think, yeah, after seeing Split too, I've been wanting to go back to Filth and rewatch it. Ah, damn it. Put another one on the list. I should give Filth another watch. Ay, ay, ay. Mirror Saw. I tried watching Acid House and I didn't understand a goddamn word of what they were saying. Yeah, accents can be a little difficult sometimes. I had the same problem with T2. Like, when it started, I did have some difficulty with the accents, I have to admit. But, you know, I started to develop, you know, I started to acclimatize myself to it. There were a few lines that I kind of missed. I maybe should have had subtitles on, but I feel like I was able to catch most of it. I got used to it after a while, but it can be tricky. For me, at least, as an American. Oh, Zach Hayes. For some reason, I get it mixed up with Trance. I assume we're talking about Filth here, which also stars James McAvoy. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, the Danny Boyle film. Both have the same actor. Okay, yeah. I'm pretty sure this is Trance and Filth we're talking about here, so that might be why. Yeah, they're kind of similar. Yeah, I don't know. But Trance, yeah, is more of a thriller. Yeah, Filth, I think, is more of kind of like a deranged comedy. Trance is, yeah, more of kind of like a trippy psychological thriller. So when you watch them, yeah, they really feel like different films. Yeah, Chaz's Dungeon, Love Witch, yeah, definitely looks like a 70s film. I thought 60s. Yeah, and they actually shot it on film. Yeah, they used the same processes that were used in like 60s movies of shooting really bright and actually not using a digital intermediate, like actually using chemical baths and physical processes to get certain looks and certain effects. It was cut on film. It was edited on film. No digital processes whatsoever. I really dig that. I can really, really dig that more classical approach to filmmaking. It's part of the reason also why I liked Free Fire. I enjoyed T2 for how cutting edge it was and for how innovative it was and the way it uses, the more versatile kind of technology. And I also really appreciated like something like Free Fire, which is kind of try to get back to something more old-fashioned. Like, let's do it all in camera. Let's try and get back to, a more 70s kind of like John Carpenter sort of filmmaking with embracing more of the physicality and the limitations that come with, doing things physical. Also digital, Free Fire. So, okay, not totally retro in that sense. But I feel like it was going for something kind of retro, and I dug that too. And definitely Love Witch sounds fascinating for that reason too, of embracing that retro aesthetic. I'm always fascinated by films and filmmakers like that. That's the thing I think is amazing, like about Paul Thomas Anderson, for instance, like how he doesn't use like digital intermediates. He doesn't use digital editing software. He develops film, chemically, doesn't retouch it or digitally color correct it, cuts all the film by hand. That I think is pretty incredible. That is a dedication to workmanship that I really admire. Okay, Zach Hayes. Trance and Filth is what I'm referring to. Okay, glad I got that right. Yeah, just wanted to be clear. Josso, holy crap, Tyrannosaur. Really hard to watch film. It was. Certainly was. But the performances, the characters in that movie are so brilliant. What's the main guy? Oh gosh, he was in like Children of Men. He's been in a bunch of movies. I know his name. It's right on the tip of my tongue. And it is not coming to me. Oh my god. I'm sure someone might mention it. I hope they do. Gosh, I wish I could remember his name. Peter Mullen. That's his name. Peter Mullen. Yeah, his lead performance in Tyrannosaur is amazing. Oh, and the actress too. I can't remember her name. And Eddie Marsan. Those three performances are so amazing that, yeah, as emotionally difficult as that film is to endure, I think it's sort of like Spider, I think it's worth it just for the incredible artistry demonstrated, by the actors and the writer-director, Patty Considine. It's a movie, not that isn't really made to be enjoyed, but I think it is a film made to be admired, for the artistry behind it and the craftsmanship behind it. But yeah, it's a powerful film, I think, and one that really stays with you for a long time. Oh god, yeah, Volstix. Oh my god, Tyrannosaur. The dog scene. Yeah, what a way to open a movie. If that's the one I'm thinking of. Damn, I love everything Paddy Considine touches. You sure? Oh, talking about Cavalry? Brendan Gleeson as the priest? Yeah, I definitely haven't seen that movie. Oh, Chaz's Dungeon. As Blade Runner 2049. I think somebody mentioned this earlier. It might have been you. Blade Runner 2049 nears its release date. The amount of advertisements increase. They're acting as if the film will be released in the next week or so. Well, it will, won't it? Okay, it's 23rd. Yeah, the 23rd. So I think it's coming out October 6th. So that's like 2 more weeks, 2.5 weeks, something like that. It's getting close. It's getting close. They've got to build the excitement. They've got to start building the momentum. And I'm really, yeah, I'm trying not to get too over-enthused about this one, but I am excited. This is one I'm definitely going to see the hell out of. Probably, yeah, whatever, October 6th. Yeah, so very next video drone after that, I'm definitely going to be talking about Blade Runner. And I hope it's not a disappointment. I hope so. Trying not to build my expectations to unrealistic proportions. But, I mean, with the talent they've got behind it, I have high hopes. I have hopes that at least it'll be a solid film. If it's not a masterpiece, okay, I can live with that, but I just hope it's not a snooze. I hope it's not a failure. I hope it's good. Oh, Jack, I love Trance. Very underrated in my opinion. Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, I think Danny Boyle, he does something interesting with every single film. I feel like he doesn't get, yeah, enough respect for that reason. That he tries, yeah, that every film is so different, but they all, you know, bear the mark of his personality and of his energy and visual creativity. I think he's a really terrific filmmaker. And again, with few exceptions, I've been very impressed by basically every film he's made. Huh. Volstix, one of my favorite cartoonists, Sammy Harcum, is running the story Blood of the Virgin in his comic Crickets. It's about a B-movie horror screenwriter, director, editor in the early 70s LA. Apparently its verisimilitude is spot on. Anyway, it's one of my favorite titles on the racks at the moment. Huh. Yeah, I'm not too adept when it comes to comic books. I don't tend to read a lot of comics. But I will at least try to look into this. Crickets? Blood of the Virgin. Blood of the Virgin. Okay. Yeah, I will at least try to look into that and see what it's all about. Yeah, I wish I read more comics. Chaz's Dungeon. Okay, this must be Blade Runner. Every cinema I've been in has played the trailer. And every time I've walked out due to that trailer. Is it because you don't like it? Do you think it's not going to be good? Or are you just sick of seeing it at this point? Yeah, I guess so. But I don't know. It's such a gorgeous trailer. And I guess I haven't been to see too many movies lately, so I haven't gotten burned out on it. Oh. Calvary. Oh. Volstix. Calvary, not cavalry. Okay, I'm sorry. I kept saying that wrong. Calvary. Did I write it? For some reason, I wrote it down correctly as Calvary, but I was saying cavalry. Alright, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize. We mentioned it in your final stream before the strike, I think, with Aidan Gillen, the Haitian guy who Jarmusch uses. Duro O'Leary? Absolutely fantastic film. Huh. Well, I wrote it down. And for some reason, yeah, I wrote it down correctly as Calvary. Okay, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. I'm sorry, that took a while. I did not notice. Calvary. Oh, Dermot O'Leary. Okay. A correction there. And Chaz's Dungeon. Has anyone seen any of the other Tetsuo films? I haven't seen Tetsuo 2, Body Hammer, or Body Hammer. Well, Tetsuo 2 is Body. That must be a typo. Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer. From what I've heard, Tetsuo 2 is a welcome addition, although the third apparently misses the point. Okay, talking about Blade Runner. Again, Chaz's Dungeon. I want to walk into the film completely blind. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I can certainly understand that. And Tetsuo, I am actually a big fan of all three of those. Yeah, the third one does tend to be looked down upon, but I actually think it's good. I actually really like that one. Not as much as the first. The first one is definitely the best. It's the purest expression of that story and that energy, I think. Tetsuo 2 is more, I guess, compared to any normal movie, Tetsuo 2 is pretty crazy, but compared to the first, I think it's more low-key. It's a little more subdued. It's trying to develop, I guess, more psychological horror in that one, although it does have sequences that are just pure visceral drive. I don't think it's as strong as the first one, but it does have some interesting ideas behind it. And yeah, I enjoy the second one in its own way, and I even enjoy the third one in its own way too. I think it's a return to... It's a little more story-driven. It tries to get a bit more into the mythology, I guess, of where the mutations are coming from and why they're happening, and developing more of a conspiracy and a mythology behind it. But I think also the third, and again, it's Shinya Tsukamoto. He's a Japanese filmmaker. It's his first movie working in the English language, a language he's not so familiar with, so it has a little bit of awkwardness, in the dialogue and the performances, which is to be expected, and I'm willing to forgive that because the Tetsuo films for me are all about imagery, are all about visceral, impactful imagery. And I think even the third film, Tetsuo the Bullet Man, it has some great sequences to it, and some great visual moments, and some great, examples of montage and music and score. Again, not as good as the first, and maybe a little too heavy on story. I think the first one is the best example of that, in that it's sheer, headlong, nonstop, barely comprehensible nonsense throughout the entire thing. And I like that. The other two try to develop it more, try to make a bit more sense. Tetsuo 2 more from a psychological standpoint of kind of exploring the character, and where his damage is coming from, and where his rage is coming from. And in the third one, trying to explore more of a story, more of a background, more of a history as for the mutations, that there's kind of like this science experiment gone awry, that kind of thing. Again, I kind of like just the sheer nonsense of the first movie, just nonstop energy, boom, 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 go, go, go. So I think the sequels are not as strong as the original, but each one I think is interesting in its own way. It does different kind of things with the idea, tries to adopt a different kind of style. I think they're all worth watching. If you like the first one, I would recommend checking out the other two as well. But the first one is definitely the best. And Volsticks. Oh. WhatThingsDo.com are offering the full story. Okay, so we must be talking about Blood of the Virgin, the comic. A bundle of issues, 3 to 6 for $25. But there will be a Blood of the Virgin collection coming out when the story is finished, if you're interested. Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm still trying to catch up on Judge Dredd. Yeah, I love, my favorite comics are the 2000 AD comics. Well, my favorite comic is Tank Girl, which I think I've mentioned. But like the comics I find myself most obsessed with are like the 2000 AD stuff. I love the 2000 AD magazine, and I love all of the different things that have sprung out of that, like Strontium Dogs and ABC Warriors and Judge Dredd especially. I've got like 4 or 5 collections of Judge Dredd. God, what was the Alan Moore thing? DR and Quinch, I think it was. I haven't read that yet, but I have the whole DR and Quinch collection. Rogue Trooper, yeah, love 2000 AD. And I've been wanting, to read more comics. I can't really get into the Marvel or DC stuff. I missed that train, when I was younger. But yeah, weird stuff like that. Blood of the Virgin. What was it? I'm trying to find your comic before. Yeah, about a B-movie horror screenwriter, director, editor in the early 70s. That sounds like a cool concept for a comic book. So that's something I'll try to check out. Trying to watch my spending here for a second, but yeah, if I get in a more financially stable position, I might have to check that one out. It is written down, so I hopefully won't forget it. But yeah, thank you for the recommendation. I will at least look into that. And hopefully anyone else who is interested, Blood of the Virgin, if that sounds like an interesting concept for a comic book, maybe take a look into it. And I think we're at the end of the chat here. So I think that means it's about time to bring this video drone to a close. Yeah, talked about both the movies. Yeah, had some interesting discussions. So yeah. Oh, let's see. Ballsticks, did you hear Carl Urban is in talks for a Dredd TV series? Stipulating no helmet removal amongst other things, Urban rules. That does sound like it could be cool. Like the Dredd world. They've spent like 30 years developing that world and expanding upon it and building a mythology. There's a lot of places to go with a Dredd TV series. So that could potentially be interesting. I do hope at some point, because I don't think they've ever, both movies I don't think have ever really touched on it, but the Dark Judges. If they do a TV series, they've got to do something with the Dark Judges and is it Judge Death? Yeah, like the antithesis of Judge Dredd. Like they've got to incorporate some of that stuff. They've got to bring that in somehow. And I thought the movie too, the Carl Urban Dredd movie, was a little too dark, a little too harsh in tone. Like what about some comic relief, some campiness, embrace a little bit of humor. I guess they did have that with like some one-liners and some comments. Like there was some humor in it, but I want a little bit of the sci-fi silliness of like those early comics, like Walter the Wobot, like the little robot pal with the speech impediment. I want to see some of that stuff being brought in too. So I think there's a lot of potential for a TV series of incorporating a lot of crazy stuff. Okay, one more from Chaz's Dungeon. If you had to rank or review every David Lynch film, what would you say? I would say F you. I don't rank movies. No, I'm kidding. But that is true. I don't like really ranking movies so much. Yeah, I always find that difficult of talking about like of like organizing like a director's film, in a ranked order, making a top 10 list or a top 50 list. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm trying to do stuff like that on Letterboxd, like I'm trying to do a top 50 list, and I'm finding it difficult. So I'm not very good at that kind of stuff. But I guess for Lynch, my favorites of his have definitely been Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, and Blue Velvet. Those are the ones I would put at the top. Gosh. And Elephant Man. Yeah, I think Elephant Man would go on the top tier for me. And then maybe middle tier would be stuff like Lost Highway, Wild at Heart, Inland Empire. Yeah, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me. There's interesting stuff in Twin Peaks. Gosh, oh, Straight Story. That goes in top tier. Straight Story is top tier for me. Yeah, I don't think he really has a bottom tier. I don't think I've ever seen a Lynch movie that I outright hated. So yeah, the best way I could organize it, yeah, would be like the top tier stuff and then kind of like lower tier, not as good. So yeah, Straight Story, Mulholland Drive, Eraserhead, Elephant Man. Did I say Eraserhead? Blue Velvet, yeah, all those. And then like, oh, Dune, yeah, which I think also has some interesting stuff. Yeah, all the other stuff I'd put kind of in a lower tier. Still interesting, still worth watching, I think, but not as fully realized as the top tier stuff. That's the best I can do for you, I'm sorry. Not as organized, yeah, and as, yeah, carefully thought out and as structured as what other people are capable of doing, but that's the best I'm capable of, I'm sorry. Oh, what is that? Volstix. Harkham edits the legendary anthology series Crayer's Ergo. I'm not sure what that is in reference to. I apologize. NP? Is that talking about 2000 AD? I'm sorry if I'm missing something obvious there. Thanks, Henry. Really enjoyed tonight's stream. Have a great day. Yeah, seconding Dark Judges. Thank you. Thank you so much. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining me. Look at the last few things here. Volstix, also, yeah, the satire is really important to Dread. I agree. Yeah, that was my one negative for the Carl Urban Dread. I thought it was pretty well put together. And yeah, had some good performances and style. Yeah, and Carl Urban, yeah, hamming it up as Dread. I like that. But yeah, I think they need to bring back the satire and the humor. Gonna say ta-ta. Okay. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining me. One more from Chaz's Dungeon. What do you think of Lost Highway? Gosh, it's another one that I want to go back and revisit and rewatch and try to see, yeah, if I missed something. Good ideas there. Good Lynchian, yeah, themes. Interesting structure and concepts. Yeah, fractured identity and split narratives of characters becoming other characters, possibly. I don't know. There are definitely things I remember. Gosh, who was the guy that played the villain in that one? God, what is it with me and the names this stream? I'm dropping a lot of names. But the tailgating scene, that character and the whole tailgating scene. Don't tailgate. That was a great scene. And the guy, his face was all painted white. Again, I'm blanking on the names. But that character was really good. And the whole sequence at the party, when he's talking with Bill Pullman and he's saying, "I'm at your house right now, call me." That's a pretty chilling scene. So, I mean, there's stuff in there. It didn't, for me, from what I remember, it didn't quite come together the same way something like Mulholland Drive did or Eraserhead, and was a really satisfying experience. Lost Highway, you know, it kind of lost me in a few sequences. But at the same time, also had some moments just of brilliance, of genius that were highly, highly memorable. Loud bike outside. And yeah, that's kind of like, that's how Lynch is sometimes. There's always really just wonderful ideas behind each of his movies. But for me, he's kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes, yeah, the movie just doesn't quite come together. And other times it does, and it's great. But then other times it's just kind of like, gosh, I don't know. Maybe like with Ronnie Rocket, it kind of feels like there's something missing to really bring the thing together. Lost Highway felt that way to me. But again, I always wonder with Lynch if maybe it's just me. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I need to go back and view it again. But yeah, there's an endless fascination with David Lynch that keeps me coming back again and again and again. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Lost Highway. But again, I'd like to rewatch it and try once more, yeah, to delve into it. So yeah, I think that will be the end of the stream here. Thank you all for joining me. Hope you enjoyed, oh gosh, you're right, Volstix, Lost Highway, Richard Pryor's last film. You're right. I forgot about that. Yeah. That was when, yeah, not long before his death. Yeah, he had MS. So, yeah, it was kind of sad, yeah, to see his condition at that point in his life. But, yeah, great that he got to do one last movie in a more dramatic kind of role, too. He never got that opportunity to really explore his depth as a performer. He got so raw and so vulnerable on stage. I'm so disappointed that Pryor never really got to do movies like that, with the exception of, like, Blue Collar, which is a great Paul Schrader movie, and the one he directed, Jojo Dancer, which is a really underseen movie. But yeah, last few thoughts throwing out there. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining me on this stream. Hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Hope you got some good ideas for movies to watch over the next week. I got to figure out what I'm going to watch and talk about next Saturday. Hopefully I'll find something. But yeah, in the meantime, you all enjoy yourselves. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and watch some good movies. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.